Oh, God, Jesus.
Oh, God damn it, Mac.
Mac, no! The mixer! It's flown off the table. It's on fire. Oh, God. This is a regular Joker moment. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. Is that your best Joker laugh cry?
I don't know about best, but it was an attempt.
That's probably the best attempt that we could probably have on the episode, right? Because anything more would just be like way too much sauce.
Yes.
For the amount of energy that I have and the amount of embarrassment that I want to save myself from putting out there.
He's the illest.
Hey, this Joker is pretty ill, let me tell you.
Yeah.
He's got some ill
Very
shit going
ill.
on. All right, let's begin. As true as I'm standing here, one day I shall bring grand opera to Iquitos. I will outgut you. I will outnumber you. I will outbillion you. I will outrubber you. I will outperform you. Sir, the reality of the Neon Crew podcast is nothing more than a rotten caricature of your grand opera. So,
is that a compliment to us?
That is me going off the cuff. Because I had the quote written down, but I forgot to switch out the word. And as I was reading it, I was trying to figure out where should I put the Neon Crew podcast in it.
Sounds like you might have got burned.
Well, I should have replaced "Bring Grand Opera to Iquitos" to "Bring Neon Crew podcast to Iquitos."
Yeah,
but it's too late now. We're already across the.
We've done it.
Yeah, we're across the river.
We're
can't
across
bring
the Pacheta.
Yeah, we can't bring the boat back across. Way too much work, and it would injure a lot of our workers. Anyway, welcome everybody to episode 82 of the Neon Crew podcast. My name is Kyle.
I'm McLean.
And we got some films to talk about. Hopefully, while you listen to this episode, you'll appreciate some of our laughter, some of our jokes. Oh, what is that? Jokes? Oh, man. I'll tell you who had jokes. Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck had plenty of jokes.
He had a lot.
He had a lot to say in the new Joker, Folie à Deux. We're gonna talk about that film. Yeah, I guess I can.
You're gonna do this one?
Yeah, I'll do this one.
So I recommended Fitzcarraldo, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Joker, Folie à Deux, which translates to madness shared by two. That's what Folie à Deux means. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah.
I knew the do part was two.
It was one of the first things that people were like, what does Folie à Deux mean? Why did he make this the subtitle? And then people looked into it and they were like, oh, yeah, that's right. And it makes sense because, Lady Gaga being a part of it, playing Harlequin, Lee in this film. But anyway, Joker, Folie à Deux, sequel to the first Joker, came out in 2019, directed by Todd Phillips. Stars Joaquin Phoenix as the title character, otherwise known as Arthur Fleck. And this is pretty much just a follow-up of the events of the first film, so spoilers for the first Joker. That's kind of obvious, though. So this takes place, I think, 2 years after the events of the first film, where Arthur Fleck kills Murray Franklin live on television. And then he is subsequently arrested and put into an asylum. Arkham Asylum. I do believe they name drop it in this.
They had
right?
I didn't hear it, but I saw it actually written. So they're still holding up with Gotham and being.
It's so strange. We'll get into this. Mm-hmm. It's very strange the elements of the Batman mythos that they choose to include or not include. In this movie, and I guess the previous film, but we'll get into it. And this is sort of it's like a. Wikipedia lists this as a jukebox musical psychological thriller film. I would say this is more of a jukebox musical, almost like courtroom drama.
Yes, 100%.
And just like a I don't know, just sort of like a psychological, not thriller film, but just like a drama. Excuse me, cut that out. And yeah, it just it takes place during Arthur Fleck's trial. They're trying to figure out whether or not he is guilty of the things he's done, or if we have his Joker persona to blame for it. And meanwhile, in the asylum, he meets Lee, played by Lady Gaga, who reveals herself to be a fan of his, and then the two of them form a relationship of sorts, and things go wacky from there. So, spoiler alert for Joker Folie à Deux.
Yes.
Now, I think it's fair to say that you and I are both fans of the first film.
Yeah, I got to revisit it.
I haven't rewatched it in a long time.
Yep.
It's one of those movies where I know at the time I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
I came out of the theater the first time I saw it thinking, wow, that was one of the best movies I had seen. This is around the time when I'm first getting into movies. I hadn't seen Taxi Driver or films of a similar ilk. So I was still very, very much like kind of inexperienced with this sort of thing. And it's one of those films that I'm kind of afraid that if I revisit it, I'm not like the rose is going to be off the bloom, or the bloom's off the rose, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah.
So I just haven't watched it in a long time. I was going to rewatch it before I saw this new movie, but I don't know, life gets in the way and I didn't have time. But I saw it enough times to remember, okay, this is what happens in the first film. I'm not going to have too much of an issue going into this one.
Yes.
In terms of understanding what's taking place. But I think it's fair to say that when they announced this movie, and I'm sure you felt the same way, when we saw the headlines of, Joker sequel confirmed to be in production, I thought to myself, really? Like, Joker's not a movie that warrants a sequel as far as story goes. Now, as far as box office goes, because the fucking thing made over $1 billion, they'd be nuts to not try to make a follow-up to that movie.
Well, I guess I wasn't too shocked. They ended the first one with him in that police car, right?
Not that I was like shocked. I was just more of like, do we need a Joker sequel? Like, I get why they're doing it because it made so much money, but anyway, continue. It depends on where it goes, and that's where I kind of stand with this one. I don't know if I felt watching this that this was something that he had planned or not. I do think that with how the first one ended, there was multiple different ways to go, and I think as we'll talk about, that's what some of the other people that saw this film were thinking as well. Mm-hmm. Like you said, there's tidbits of the Batman mythos thrown in there, and they don't really tap on it, which I was thinking they could have in this one, but as a story, I think it holds up. So yeah, I don't know if shocked, but I wasn't. I was thinking that it was all right that they had another one coming out. Right. I appreciated the first film just on its own merit. I didn't really care about the fact that it was or wasn't part of like the greater Batman sort of scene.
Yep.
I just liked it as its own self-contained dramatic thing. Yes.
Yeah.
And so this movie coming out, one, it being a sequel, I'm kind of bumping up against it because really? Like I like the first movie by itself. Two, they announce it as a jukebox musical. Me not being a musical boy at all. It's my least favorite movie genre.
Jukebox, that kind of like spices up, gives a little pizzazz.
I guess, but even still, the idea of the immersion of the story being broken up with song was just kind of something that really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
But then I was kind of intrigued when they announced, Lady Gaga's going to be a part of this. She's going to play Harlequin. And I hadn't really, Lady Gaga's not in a whole lot of movies. I just watched A Star is Born this past year for the first time. I actually enjoy that movie.
I like that movie quite a bit.
I enjoy her performance in it, and I think that it is one of those films where she's got the juice.
Yep.
She's got the stuff. So her being included in this movie was just sort of this turned from I don't know how I feel about this to this could be interesting. This could have something to it. And so I go into this movie with mixed expectations, compounded with this movie's coming out, there's a certain amount of interest for it, and then reviews get released, and then all of a sudden this movie is sort of kneecapped, and then the box office performance is just wholly underwhelming. What were your sort of like thoughts going into this film before it released?
So the weird, obviously, this had a lot of buildup. I'm in the same boat of, I remember the Joker enough to remember me liking it. Can't quite remember all of it. I'm sure if I threw it back on, I'd probably have the same feelings, maybe a little bit less. Like, I think I'm a little timid to throw it back on because it's a slow burn as well. But I heard the sequel's coming out. I'm like, all right, and then you hear some musical, and it's like, well, I wonder what he can do with this. I know it's going to be kind of not necessarily conventional. I was thinking that the whole thing was going to be a musical, and I was like, that might be interesting. But if you can get some action and some violence going with it, it could be really fun. Kind of that what the Joker personifies, and coming into it, the funny thing is, the very first thing I saw was like, because I get like news headlines, banners that pop up on my phone, and the first review that I saw was like, Todd Phillips, hits it out of the ballpark. It's your unconventional musical that, lands with its this, that, and that. And I'm like, okay, so this thing's going to be all right. Like, I got excited. I was like, sweet. I want to hear that. We got Lady Gaga in here. I'm sure that they're going to have some fun things. Because the Joker, the first one was kind of fun at points. It is bleak and depressing, but there are points where it makes you laugh and it's kind of wild.
Right. Like, the uncomfortable humor of it is sort of what makes that movie unique, I would say.
I'm thinking of like the scene in The Crow, the opera scene in The Crow, where it's just like, it's chaos, it's mayhem, it's bloody. It probably shouldn't be being laughed at, but this is like, it's just fun. So that's what I had built in mind, and then the more reviews started coming out, and not great.
Yeah.
So
reception for this was bad.
Yeah, it's still bad.
Amongst not only, professional film critics, but general audiences don't
everywhere.
Like it. Film enthusiasts don't like it. People who liked the first movie don't like it. And then people who did not like the first movie still don't like it. Which, that's the most understanding demographic. But there's like a lot of different expectations being set for this movie. Well, and then it just quickly funneled into, this movie is bad. I
mean, I think what happened is you've got the whole landscape to play with this character. And they ended it on the first one with, is he or isn't he the Joker? Like, where's he standing at mentally, right?
Yes.
And it plays into who the Joker is. And I think a lot of people, and it could just be me, kind of projecting, but had expectations that this was going to go further into the chaos of what the Joker is. And I don't think it kind of does, kind of doesn't in this one. And that's where I lean one way or another on it. And I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way. And then all of a sudden, everyone just started piling on with it. It was like, it's a lot easier to poke fun at this thing than it is to actually stand up and say, this is how I feel about it, And I think that's where we're at with this thing, is like, it is just a snowball effect of bad reviews. And now you got like, meme culture going on and stuff. So this thing's probably getting beat up everywhere. And,
it's being treated like Arthur in the prison.
Oh my God.
It's just getting it's taking haymakers, pot shots as it's walking down the hall.
Yeah, any which way. Yeah, I heard someone said something like, man, that's horrible. And then another guy was like, just like the Joker. I was like, damn. Like,
yeah,
it's true. You don't want to have that association going on. And unfortunately, I think that's what we're experiencing.
So I think we can dive into our ultimate feelings on this movie. So I will say, I don't think that this is the worst movie to come out this year. Right. I don't think it's like, the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen. Certainly not in theaters.
Yes.
I will say, I don't think this movie's good.
Okay.
I don't think it works.
Yep.
There's a lot that's wrong with this movie.
That's what I want to hear.
The biggest thing that I think I have towards this movie in terms of just like my feelings, my like surface level feelings, is they really could have done something with this that made it stand apart, but also like work as a successor and be like a competent follow-up. But it felt so mixed. It felt like they didn't really know how to implement the musical element of it in a way that felt like it was organic.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it just like cut in, which is normally my problem with musicals anyway, but when you have something like this where it's just you got such dramatic elements of it where scenes are leading into something that could be interesting.
Yeah.
And then you cut it with a musical number. I don't know. It kind of feels like a series of rugs being pulled out from under you where like this could have some juice. This could have some potential of being something that has something to say or like something interesting to portray or like even showcase some like, decent acting and cool technical effects. But then it gets into the, hey, we're doing a song now. And it's like the songs and the choreography and the musical numbers to me aren't even memorable enough to justify it being a musical.
Yeah.
There's musicals that I like Tick, Tick, Boom or Grease or even some parts of like West Side Story are things that I can understand because, yeah, there's a lot of work going into how this is staged, into how this is composed as a song itself.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's a jukebox musical with pre-existing music, and I'm struggling to remember most of the songs that played in this movie.
Well, yeah, okay. I will tell you, I am much higher on this thing than you are.
Okay.
The issue, so preliminary issue wise, 1, slow burn. 2, you don't really know what you're getting into throughout this thing, right? I mean, this is kind of just, to me, it felt like an examination of Arthur Fleck's life. So we're getting into the mind of Arthur Fleck, and he's got these two personalities going on.
So I want to bring up the two personalities thing.
Well, hold on, we'll get into that because there's a whole. I'm like,
don't let me forget that.
You won't because that's how this whole thing of me. I'm telling you, I got done with that thing. I was like, sucked, right? The musicals, you're right. I wasn't like the biggest fan of them, but I had this epiphany after the thing, and some of them I did like. Like there's that Lady Gaga song where they're on stage and they're kind of performing, and he's like, "You stopped looking at me," and then they get into their whole bit, Some of them were fun to me, and some of them were just like whatever. I don't think people are gonna remember the music because it's from the 1950s. So like I think it's all like Congress of Library music. But I was reading reviews after I got done, and all these negative reviews were popping in where it's like, this thing's, it's wild, it's zany, it's chaotic. You could tell that Phillips has a hard time presenting, Arthur Fleck. It's the same old Arthur Fleck. And then it gets contrasted with this like craziness of the Joker. And it just felt so like everywhere. Right. And then I'm thinking about it and I was like, that's what the Joker is. That's why I think that's what he was trying to go for, is that we're in this mind of this person where it's just getting pulled each way, and he's trying to present this thing in the light of being in the mind of Arthur Fleck, and we have an unreliable, essentially character. I don't want to call it narrator, but we are following everything that he does. And we're at this point now where even in his head, that he can't separate reality from fantasy. Mm-hmm. He's presenting it on screen. And then I got done thinking about that. I was like, this is almost like Beau is Afraid. Except it's just presented in the mind of a insane person.
I think I saw a comment that said this is DC's universe's Beau is Afraid movie.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting take, especially the link between Joaquin Phoenix and those films. Can I touch on the dual personality thing?
Yeah, because that's one thing that I'd like to touch on too.
So obviously it's something that the film is putting forth like front and center, is the idea of, is Arthur Fleck just this mentally ill person and Joker is his persona that he puts out into the world and uses as like, oh, this is a different, like even the opening cartoon that's in this movie, which, I enjoyed for the most part. That cartoon was kind of silly and fun. It's putting forth the idea of like, oh, he has this other version of himself that, I don't want to say it's like a two-faced thing, and Harvey Dent is a character in this movie, but it is that sort of thing of like, is he responsible for his actions, or does he not know, right from wrong? Is he kind of like fuzzy in his reality? I don't think the first movie really put that as like enough of a theme for me to get behind it in this movie. And naturally, my feelings of this stem from this film is so indebted to the first one. Obviously, it takes place in the aftermath of what happens, to where I don't think it works quite as effective for me as I would have liked it to. I think if they had established it in the first film with a sort of like stronger punctual sort of stamp on it, I think I would have liked that a little bit more. But I don't know. To me, it feels like something where I just kind of had to sit there and shake my head and go like, what? They're doing like the double personality thing? Was that? I don't remember that being a thing.
So the way that I remember the first one leading into this one, and like I said, I didn't like think about this thing until I walked out, and then all of a sudden like I had to flip on it. And that sometimes it's, you know, abstract thinking on things where I could be way off. That's why I want to, because I don't think the story's like all that strong. But
no,
the first one ends with him. I don't want to like kind of. I guess we're spoiling. I don't know if we're spoiling or not.
Yeah, let's spoilers for the first and this Joker.
I mean, this is because it kind of stems into it. But he becomes the Joker, right? And so there's not enough of that I know about mental health with split personality. But it's not a persona. It's not him taking on the person. It's actually this person inside his head that's doing these things, right? So that's why the lawyer the whole time is presenting it almost as like a medical side of things, of this is what's going on in his brain. Like, you need to understand that when the Joker comes out, this isn't Arthur Fleck acting. This is a person that he's built, like an identity. Like, there's two identities in his head. Mm-hmm. And I think the first one, if I remember right, ended with him struggling with that identity crisis of that evil, that chaos coming out of him. And that's when you get to the Maury Franklin show.
Yeah.
Is that right? Maury Franklin? Mm-hmm. Right? And
yeah, that's the thing I like about the first movie a lot, is the progression of, okay, he's killing to defend himself. Like the three guys on the train,
yes,
you could argue that was a self-defense kill. The last one's a little bit fuzzy, but it's...
I think it's that transcendence into the other identity.
Yes, and then the next like outright murder that he commits is, I think he puts the pillow over his mom.
Yes.
And then that's like, okay, you know, this is stemming from like a lot of childhood stuff. And then it progresses to even more and more kind of like nefarious violence, to the point where he shoots a man on live television.
Yeah.
And so like that progression of violence, I think, is one of my favorite parts portrayed in the first Joker movie, of like, oh, this guy is like descending into this state of just like,
but that's the
absolute delusion.
That's the funny. That's why I kind of appreciate this film, is because now you get into the question: is it Arthur Fleck, or is it another identity? Is the Joker another identity within himself that gets pulled out? And so like that's why I kind of want to watch the first one again, because there's that progression, or you know, into the Joker. But if you view it as him being Arthur Fleck and finally saying, I'm taking on this persona, it's still Arthur Fleck. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this one, they're saying there's a definite split with who he is. But the part that I love about it is, yet we're still talking about it and we don't know. And there's no clear distinction between that, which with people that have a mental health disorder of this ilk, probably of the same, you know, pill, right? Like you walk in and you see one person, and if they have split personality, you might see them doing completely different actions. And is that a persona? Are you still who you are? Or am I talking to someone else right now? And then the musicals play into that. So when he gets into these fantasy worlds of what he wants to do or where he's at, those musicals pop up, right? Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden he's living this fictitious world of what he's viewing. So you're in this thing with an unreliable, like I keep calling him a narrator, but we are honestly following him, right? So he's an unreliable character, if you want. Right?
Yeah.
So these musicals and these fantastical things start popping up, and you know, in his head, he's just delusional. He's thinking about it right now, and he's portraying someone that he isn't, you know, and it really plays into the madness of this film. I think it gets misunderstood in the sense that it's not straight line, and it's not necessarily like non-linear. You know, you've got to be able to assess, all right, who are we with right now? Mm-hmm. And to me, what sealed it for me was at the end, you know, when he's sitting in there and he's, hey, Fleck, you got a visitor after all the shit happened, right? He's got that fucking long sleeve garb that he had right in the beginning of the film. And it makes you wonder, because it flashes out, and I think it was the same cartoon on that he was watching at the beginning, right before that first musical, right? Mm-hmm. That was on, and it pans out from that thing, and it's like, did he just think of all that? Like, did we just go through a whole movie with this guy who is just daydreaming and fantasizing about all these things happening that don't really happen? Mm. Like, it's really, I don't know. I found it fun just thinking about how delusional and crazy this thing could be if all of that was just in his head and we just watched him play out like a daydream, right? And then he gets up like, because like they bomb the building, he gets out, he escapes, and the police catch him, right? And next thing you know, he's back in Gen Pop. It's like, hey, you got a visitor. I'm like, who the fuck's visiting this dude?
I think it's hinted at that that is set up for him to get stabbed.
Right.
Because I think there's a scene where the cops like nod at each other and then they say like, hey, Arthur, you got like there's no one visiting him.
Okay.
Like by the end of the movie, like Harley Quinn has dropped him. Like it's all...
If it all happened.
Sure, if it all happened. I think my big issue with that, other than just the whole concept of it all being for nothing and it just returning back to square one how the movie started, which I guess if you want to do that for your movie, that's fine. I'm just not a huge fan of that sort of thing. My big issue with that is, and maybe this is just something that they purposefully did for the sake of this film, is Arthur has no narrative agency in anything going on whatsoever. Everything that's happening to him is either the actions of Lady Gaga or his lawyer or the guards or the inmates or the prosecuting attorney, Harvey Dent, or the judge, or like everything else. Whereas...
Which might fit into a daydream storyline.
Which I guess maybe, but I don't know. To me, that just, it doesn't feel like an interesting enough narrative structure for me to get behind.
I agree. Because the story in this thing sucks.
I think it is such a weak story. I think that it feels like it's spinning its wheels in circles. And one of the bigger offenses to me, especially after watching A Star Is Born, Lady Gaga is so underutilized in this film. Like, I feel like this movie really didn't know what to do with her, other than just have her be the idea of, oh, we're going to have a take on like these fangirls of killers when they go and see them in court or whatever. Like there's that kind of idea of like, oh, these women are obsessed with like Ted Bundy the same way Harley Quinn is obsessed with Arthur Fleck.
So to me, with the character of Arthur Fleck, and I was talking to Jasmine about this, I was like, it's really funny that this dude is in such a lose-lose position, right? He can't be Arthur Fleck because he can't stand up for himself or do what he wants to do, and no one will love him, right? And he can't be the Joker because he does. No one care. They only care if he's the Joker. Which his whole thing in this thing was, I want people to recognize me for me, not for him. You know, so he can't be the Joker, or else no one's gonna care about Arthur Fleck. He can't be Arthur Fleck because then no one cares about what he's doing anyways. So the whole thing with like Lady Gaga and all that stuff, I felt like it was pulled in for him to kind of like overcome. You know, hey, like. Stand up. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. I don't want to say stand up for who you are, but like show us as an audience, like just how sick this guy is. Maybe like I can't. Yeah, I don't know why she's
the relationship between the two is so complicated, and it's one of those things where like I get what they're going for. Like she's kind of that devil on his shoulder of like, yeah, embrace the Joker, like be this guy. Yes. Whereas like his lawyer, played by Catherine Keener, who I think. Catherine Keener's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best roles I've seen her portray in a long time. Like I saw her in The Adam Project like a few years ago.
Why did you watch that?
It's just because it was on. And she plays the villain in that movie, and she could not give less of a shit.
Isn't Ryan Reynolds in that thing?
Yep. It's a Ryan Reynolds time travel movie.
We've already done too much on The Adam Project.
Anyway, saying anything about is too much about The Adam Project. But... whereas his lawyer, played by Catherine Keener, is supposed to be like the angel on his shoulder. Like, I'm going to try to steer you in the right direction. We're going to paint this narrative, and we're going to let people show, or we're going to let you show that that's not the real you.
The dual side of Arthur Fleck. You have him as a person, and her saying, "Hey, you can get out of this. You just have to." You just have to say that guy sucks and that you're, owning up to him doing all these things.
Right.
And then you have Harley Quinn saying, hey, be the Joker, screw Arthur Fleck, because no one cares about you as Arthur Fleck. They only care about you as the Joker.
Yeah. And it's just, she is in that consistent mode the whole movie, where it's predominantly portrayed in these musical numbers, which I don't feel like I get like a good enough gauge of like her performance as an actress from that. Like Lady Gaga just has a screen presence because she's a musical artist and she's great at singing and performing. But as a character itself, it just feels very weak. And then at the end of the film, she just drops him, and
because
that's kind of all we get from her. Like, I would have loved to see more from her as like an actress performing in a dramatic role.
I'm not all too familiar with the Joker, Harley Quinn, DC stuff going on, but
it's wild.
That's what I'm saying. I think they were trying to highlight some of that going on in
it's almost kind of like the inverse of how it's normally portrayed, because in the comics and in other like popular media with Joker and Harley Quinn,
he's dropping her.
Yeah, it's like he is the like abuser or the like controlling element of the relationship, predominantly like whenever it's portrayed in like movies or TV or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she's just kind of like a sort of like roundabout victim of him, because in the lore he like tortures her to become Harley Quinn because she's like a therapist or something.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's almost the inverse of it, which could be like a fresh take on it. I'm not knocking their attempt at it. It's just the execution of it and the lack of delving into that for the sake of having these musical performances. I don't know. It's not enough for me. I wanted more of that exploration.
Yeah. No, I like the story's weak, and there are things I think this thing could have went a whole different angle. But
I do too. I have a take, but yeah, I'm curious.
I didn't mind it at the end of it. I felt so bad for Arthur Fleck and the Joker because he's just battling with this, like, it's an existential crisis. Like, I don't want to be a speck of dust in the infinite universe. I want people to know who I am, and I've had all these things going on, and they're highlighting some of the mental health and trauma and stuff. So I was like, all right. And then they get to the end, and he's finally like, I did it. I stood up for myself. And she's like, yeah, you suck. No one cares about you. And it's just another gut wrench stab there. But unfortunately, there's not enough else going on with the plot to make that be like the great climax that it ended up being. And like you said, if it is a fresh take, like, boy, you hung your hat on the wrong take.
I think this movie, while not doing much, is at the same time trying to try different things in order to compose a whole movie. I think it might have worked better if it either stuck with, hey, we're going to be a courtroom drama, or hey, we're going to be sort of following Arthur while he's in prison, like, or in this insane asylum or whatever.
I don't think either of I think you had to get him back into the madness and let the Joker take over.
And then that's my other thing too, is the end when the guy stabs him, and they've been teasing kind of like this crazy looking inmate the whole time.
So you saw it too, okay.
And then he, at the end when he stabs Arthur, he's like, hey, you get what you fucking deserve, and he like stabs him a bunch, and Arthur's dying on the ground.
Yeah.
He's like starts laughing maniacally, cuts his face. Oh, so this guy's the real Joker? Like, he's going to be Joker now? Like, this is sort of what we're supposed to infer from all this. I don't know. It felt kind of cheap to me. Was not a fan.
The way I saw it was there are thousands of people that struggle with mental health stuff going on, and that the real villain is, the mental health side of it. And, hey, you think you're just one dude. Like, it's like the same thing with the, the guy that throws the coup on the leader, thinking that, oh, I'm the leader now, so now I get to do it. There's just going to be another coup. Like, at the end of the day, not to say it all goes for naught, but I mean, there's bigger things going on, and he wasn't making much of a difference. But when you have a story focus on one character the whole time, you got to have some sort of, I don't know what his arc was, or rise or fall. Like, I don't really know what we gleaned from everything that happened besides you're just another person.
It's just, I think it's honestly, and this sort of might be my issue towards a movie like Matrix Resurrections, where the director kind of goes, you know what people expect of me? I'm just going to do the other thing to piss people off, and we're just going to go with that, right? And, the Warner Brothers connection too. But it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I get it. Like, sure, maybe some people, the first movie, who were fans of it, who might not have been like the most savory kind of people to be fans of that movie, like incels or whatever. Like, I get it. You're going to get that with like a bunch of popular films like Fight Club or American Psycho, or like people who revere characters for the wrong reasons. Whereas, like, I don't think you need to make like a whole response film in order to like piss people off in order to get your point across. Like, I get it, right? And I'm a fan of movies that feel hopeless. You know, I like movies like Come and See or like really depressing shit. But in the case of this movie, I don't know. I did not get much from it that I would have liked to. At least with something like Come and See, I get like this sense of like, you know, hopelessness and like, oh wow, the world is like bleak and doomed. Whereas this one, it's like I don't know.
Well, you gotta, you know, I think you gotta at least be able to see the character, and you have to see two different identities, and then you have.
And I can't get behind that.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you and that's what I don't think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people it's expecting something, and I thought I wasn't really into it until the best scene that happened to me, where I was like, oh, you know, like, okay, I think something's going on here in the courtroom. He's just sitting there and he's taking it on the chin by all these people, right? And he's got the neighbor in there, you know, she's lambasting him, not like in a mean way, just in like a blunt, like a very honest, truthful way for him to hear it.
Actually, I kind of like that scene too.
And then all of a sudden, the Joker just comes on, and it's a silhouette of him, and he's holding the mic, and it's just like, I'm here, bitches. I'm coming out, you know? And then it's just like, ah! So he starts singing, and then he goes, you're done. You're fired as my lawyer. You're done. I'm representing myself, you know? And that's what I was like, oh, yes, like, here we go. But then it just didn't go anywhere from there. I mean, it just kind of, like, he's still kind of fighting, you know, Arthur Fleck versus the Joker. But at that point, I was like, that evil or that chaos is awoken in him, and now here it's on. And at that point, I wish you would have did a little bit more with the story, you know. Then one
of the biggest, like my least favorite scenes in this movie is one that happens not long after that, where after he fires Catherine Keener,
the Gary,
and he's the Gary scene, That's an example of a scene in this movie where I just go like, what are we doing? Like, what is this movie doing here? And he's doing like this weird Clarence Darrow, like Southern, like oil baron lawyer voice. And it's, I don't know. To me, that's just like an exemplary scene in this movie that to me just is like, all right, I'm not really into this.
I thought,
like, what is the point of this scene?
It's the Joker being, you know, he's mayhem, chaos. He's got no rules, and everything's it's a joke to him. Life's a joke. So I mean, he's going in there. He's obviously poking fun at the judicial system. He's poking fun at the judge, and then I think, like, just now talking about it, when he goes, Gary, I liked you. That's why I didn't. You know, the Joker's actually saying, hey man, like, I felt for you. It's not like Arthur Fleck going, I like you. It's him going like, that's why I didn't kill you. I'm the guy that would have pulled the trigger on you, I didn't do it.
I don't know. Maybe that scene would have been more effective to me if he wasn't trying to be like this, like, I don't know, goofy caricature of a lawyer.
You're thinking of Arthur Fleck doing it. You got to think of the Joker doing it. Like, that's exactly.
I don't know.
Like,
I still can't do it.
If you think about a guy, you know, that the guy that doesn't care gets pulled over by the cops. You got two guys, right? You got the one that's like, oh no, sir, I wasn't speeding, and then you got the other guy that's like, oh, hey, did you guys smell donuts? You know, this completely making fun of the oppositional authority. You know, like ODD.
Sure. But that's a scene where they could have really used the opportunity of the emotion of that scene to be like, oh, wow, okay, we have this guy who actually was nice to Arthur, and Arthur was nice to him. They, like, share sort of kinship.
You said Arthur. That's what I'm saying. It's not Arthur steering the ship.
This is why I don't buy the dual personality thing.
Why not?
Because I feel like it's something that isn't explored as much as it could have been, especially in the first movie, where to me that doesn't feel like something that was a theme that was put forth. To me, the first movie is mostly just about this guy who's mentally ill.
Here's a question.
Who is just like using it as like a mask and not really like, oh, this is like a split personality sort of thing.
So who killed Murray Franklin?
Arthur Fleck.
See, that's what I'm saying. Dressed up as a Joker, still Arthur Fleck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying you've got this guy like Me, Myself, and Irene. You ever see that film?
No.
Okay. I mean, you have to see Me, Myself, and Irene. They actually, you know, it's a comedy on the
I've seen Me, Myself, and
Dupree?
No, I'm thinking of Yours, Mine, and Ours.
Oh.
I've seen that. That's a similar movie.
Yeah,
right?
I was about to say that falls right in line with what we're talking about.
Just out of nowhere.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you see that, you can. I think that's why I'm gonna probably rewatch the first one because I think it's that descent into like. So it depends on who you're rooting for too. If you want Arthur Fleck to finally stand up and do all these things, and he's got to throw on the mask to do it, kind of like, isn't it almost the inverse of what Batman is? Batman's in control of both aspects, and he's got dual. He's fighting those identities, but he obviously knows the difference between the two. Where the Joker doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. So you're getting into this point of how does the Joker become the Joker? So you have the origin of the Joker in the first one, which gets to the Murray Franklin show, right? And now we get the inception of the Joker right at the very end. The climax is he made the split, right? And that's where, and honestly too, so I'm saying that here we are, the whole fucking courtroom drama is who killed Murray Franklin? Is it the Joker or Arthur Fleck? And me and you are arguing about this. Mm-hmm. Which makes it I think it makes it a fine film if you're having that, but the story sucks.
Yes, I think we can agree there.
Like, I don't know if we had to do 2 hours to have that.
No, not at all. Can I tell you an interesting fact that I learned while researching?
Yes.
So apparently, at the end of the first film, when he stands on the car and he gives himself like the little blood smile.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie. Apparently, the original plan for that was for Arthur to give himself the Glasgow smile, like the cuts on his face. But Christopher Nolan had those rights protected for Heath Ledger's Joker, so they legally could not do that. Like, Heath Ledger's Joker at the time, when Christopher Nolan was with Warner Brothers, was the only live-action version of the character at that point who could have that be a part of his character.
Right, because of like ratings or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now, after Christopher Nolan severed ties with Warner Brothers after the whole Tenet debacle, they could do it in this movie with the character at the end of the film.
Oh.
So, a little bit of an interesting factoid that I pulled up that I thought you'd appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of potential in this movie that I saw. And I didn't mind, like, the first, I would say probably, like, 45 minutes of it, where he's... I think, like, the first 45 minutes are actually kind of solid, where, like, you've got the whole stuff with, like, the TV interview and, like, his relationship with his lawyer and, like, the start of, like, him and Harley Quinn and, like, their dynamic in the mental hospital.
Yeah.
And, like, his back and forth with the guards and, like, his relationship with them and everything. I think that stuff could have been, like, really interesting to explore and dive into. And then instead, it kind of gets into the courtroom minutia of it. And it's like, now we're just kind of, like, running in circles. And that's my biggest issue with this film.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like, and I said this before, but I'll say it again. Whenever something started to get interesting, goes into the song, and then I'm like, all right, let's just get through this.
Yeah, because it's turning into the Joker.
He's turning into the Joker.
She makes a great point that I reflected on was he can't separate fantasy or fiction from reality, right? And unfortunately, it's like halfway through the film when she makes that statement. But then it really makes you think, all right, is Todd Phillips intending for us to be able to separate reality from fiction? Like, what are we really...
Yeah, there's some, like, kind of surreal play going on. Like, oh, are we supposed to take this literally?
Well, that's why I want to see those musicals again, because, like, I know that Arthur Fleck, he'll start singing, but, to me, it's curious is it him or is it, like, when he starts to, like, all right, I'm going to teeter on some of this chaos and some of how, like, this other side of me that I really want to let out, And there are times where he's strictly the Joker, and then there's times where I think he's kind of singing with Harley Quinn, but he still has a sing going on. But I think if I had to guess, like, they're probably referencing a lot of it with this other side of him that may or may not be out, and that's where those musicals dive into some of that fantasy world. And now he's creating it in his head of, all right, this is like what I want to see, and this is what I want to have happen, and yeah, I there might be a second viewing of this thing.
Can I offer you my perspective of what they could have done differently?
I am curious because I don't think the story's all that great, and I thought they could have did this in a more of a roundabout way, if I'm using that correctly.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you're going to like this, but just hear me out.
Oh my God, I'm sure. Let's go. Yeah, deep and dark with Kyle.
You make Lady Gaga's character the main character.
Okay.
Most of the movie is from her perspective. She sort of like falls into this ideology that the Joker, Arthur Fleck, is putting out into the world of like, we're being downtrodden, fuck the man, I want to let out my rage in a violent way. And she sort of like falls into that. That's kind of how she gets into where she ends up towards the end of the film, in the same mental hospital that he is in. And it's almost framed in a way that's similar to how the first movie was framed, where Arthur is looking at Murray Franklin with like this reverence of, I want to be like him. I want to make people laugh. I want to tell jokes that capture people's attentions. And I want people to love me. And it's sort of that same thing of like, Arthur is her version of Murray Franklin. And then have it be at the end of the movie when she meets him and realizes that, oh, this is maybe could support your idea of the dual personalities. Oh, this is just Arthur Fleck. This is just some guy. And then she becomes disappointed in him. And then I don't know where you would go after that necessarily, but yeah. I think that would be a unique perspective on things of like, oh, we're kind of touching on similar themes of the first movie while at the same time having it stay new and fresh. Not sure how you'd have the musical elements in it, if at all. If it were up to me, I'd take them out. But I mean, what do you think of that as like a
no, that
idea?
Would be new, and that is new and fresh. I kind of I like that. I think what you lose on that is,
obviously you lose a lot of like the Joaquin performance.
Well, we lose that, and we lose, you lose sight of the Joker. I mean, I guess the lore of the Joker stays kind of throughout as
you couldn't call it Joker 2 or whatever you'd call it. Like,
right.
You'd have to call it Harlequin or
yeah,
something.
you could have something. It's not bad. I mean, I'm not gonna. I think they could have went a million different ways with this thing. I'm gonna like, for me, it's, hey, let's get him going into the Joker, and all of a sudden, like, he's like the cartoon played out. He is fighting that thing on the outside, though. Let's have him have mayhem and chaos going on the outside, as opposed to this courtroom drama, and where it's an examination of his life and him like hearing all these things and kind of coming to, like I didn't need that for 2 hours, but
no,
like I said, I mean, I think he had something in mind. Like, as you brought up earlier when we said, shocked, that's a standalone film. This thing to me felt like Todd Phillips, in my head at least, and how I'm viewing it, was or had an idea about what he was trying to portray. Mm-hmm. Now, was it entertaining? Some of it, and especially more reflective than actually being in the moment. Because in the moment, I was like, oh my God, like you said, the first 45, I was like, I could care less about this thing. Like, we were going nowhere fast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that they introduced Harley Quinn and we have some relationships going on with the guards, but like, he ain't doing shit except looking in the camera, singing and smoking and doing his weird, like, bend over the back thing.
I know I've been laying it on thick with this movie in terms of my issues. So let me talk about things I liked. I think most of the performances are really good. Like, the performances in this movie to me range from like good to like pretty, like interesting and unique and like really good. Specifically, Catherine Keener sticks out. Joaquin is doing his thing.
I thought Gary was great.
Gary was really, really good. I
was the only one that could relate to you, Arthur.
I know, that's why I wish that scene wasn't undercut with the weird comedy. But
dude, go back and just think about it as like, all right, he's playing the Joker, and then just think about it from that element of how he would handle a situation that's supposed to be serious.
Possibly, maybe I just need to watch this movie with you giving commentary. That's what I need.
I only got it at the end, and it's all through reflection right now. That's what I'm saying. Like, because he does the whole, like, what'd you say, Clarence Darrell thing or whatever. I do declare, now, Mr. Gary.
Now, Mr. Puddles.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, your name's Puddles?
Yeah. Can you all believe that?
Is your name really Puddles?
Who names the child Puddles, even though it's your father's surname? I do declare. But yeah, like going back, like I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, he's gonna find the most caricature thing he could find to just highlight and make fun of everything that's going on. Like, he really doesn't care if he's gonna die or not. Like, that's where that guy's at. Like, he did 5 minutes of the Puddles joke, which is not funny at all.
No,
but to him, life's a joke, so who cares? I'm gonna fucking highlight this.
I did like the scene where he wants him to autograph his book.
Oh, dude, that made me laugh out loud.
And then he starts writing something nice, and then he says some dumb shit, and then he writes, "I hope you get cancer."
The guy goes, "Oh man, they're gonna fry his ass, aren't they? Yeah, that's a death penalty. Oh, he's gonna die." He's like, "I signed your book." It just reads, "I hope you get cancer."
Yeah. Which honestly, if the Joker was signing my book, I would want him to say some shit like that.
Yeah.
The production value of this movie is, I think, the best part of it.
Cinematography is really good.
It is very consistent with the first movie, and that is just very visually gorgeous looking.
Yes.
The editing's really good. Like all the technical aspects, I have no issues. I have no notes for this movie in terms of that angle of it.
Yeah.
And even my issues with like the musical numbers and everything, I really like the lighting of it, the like wardrobe that they have.
Dude, how about I'm Gonna Move a Mountain? Like that song was awesome.
Is that the one where he's tap dancing?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one scene that I think I came across on Instagram where he's like doing his tap dance. And I didn't watch the whole video. I just scrolled past it, but it kept popping up as a meme. Dude. And I was like, oh, I guess this is something I get to look forward to.
I like that. Yeah, that. And I thought the other one where they're singing together, I don't know what song they were singing, but they're doing their live show, you know? I thought that was a really fun music. I thought that was fun.
Can we talk about how they get to bone in this movie? Pretty great, right? Pretty sexy and hot.
Yeah, how do you make that depressing?
Well, they did it.
Hey, you get to have sex with Lady Gaga. All right, I'm gonna be as weird as I can be.
Yeah.
I'm having your child.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Do you think she's actually pregnant, or do you think she was just lying to him the whole time?
I think it's all a fantasy in his head, and that everything that we saw for an hour and 50 minutes was just him fantasizing about what was going to happen, and everything was just played out as a joke. Because I think with the Joker, I think everything's chaos, mayhem, no rules. He lives in a fantasy world, so everything we saw was from the Joker's perspective of what he was thinking about, and then it just snaps back. So I don't. That to me felt very Beau is Afraid.
Yeah.
You know.
I had something I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was. My brain is very tired. Yeah, I guess I don't think I have too much else to say about this movie. I think we said all we needed to say. Oh, I was going to say the real fantasy was me watching this movie. Anyway.
Oh, that's just... Dude, I had a very Beau is Afraid moment with this thing after the film, which is awful. Like, I wish I was experiencing it as I was going through it.
I had to watch another movie. I think I put on another film after I watched this one because I said to myself, like, I need to
purge myself of what I just saw.
Even if it was a movie that I enjoyed, the depressing nature of it would have made me go like, all right, I need to throw something else on. So I watched Caddo Lake on HBO Max.
Check it out. Don't check it out.
I think it's got something to it.
Okay.
I think it is. I'm not going to say too much about it. I think it is a little bit more of a piss poor version of something I really like.
Oh.
But it still manages to do it in an interesting enough way.
Okay.
And Dylan O'Brien is genuinely really good in that movie.
Yeah, it's on Max, and I keep seeing it. I'm like, it says horror, but he's just looking at the screen like with like a dumbfounded face.
I went into it thinking it was going to be one type of movie, and it was a completely different.
Did it scare you at all?
It's not scary.
Okay.
It's not a scary movie.
It's like a thriller, right?
In a way.
Okay.
I don't want to say too much.
No, you're good because it popped up. But if you're saying, hey, check it out, like I'll probably check it out.
Yeah.
Because I got a movie too that you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unless you've already seen it, which you may have, and if you haven't, that's upsetting.
What movie is it?
I'm not going to tell you till the end.
All right.
When we're talking about movies to discuss, because this thing is like, I've never been like hey, we should probably talk about this next one with Halloween coming up. Like, this is a good movie to discuss with horror.
Excellent, because I wasn't sure what to pick for the movie I want to recommend to pair it with.
Unless you've already seen it.
Unless I've already seen it.
Anyways. C'est la vie.
C'est la vie. Folie, Deux.
Yeah.
Deux. We have ratings for this movie.
Oh, God. You know, I was going to get swayed one way or another. You go second, right? I go first?
I think so.
All right. I'm going to tell you right now, and it might be because I'm counterculture, Just like if people are going one way, when they zig, I'm gonna zag.
I'm just built different, man.
You know, but I had a very Beau is Afraid with this thing, and I like Beau is Afraid. And the more we've talked about it, I've even like put a smile on my face, saying like,
A Glasgow smile.
dude, the whole examination is, did Arthur Fleck kill him or did the Joker? And we just spent 50 minutes talking about it, and both of us see it two different ways. So to me, that tells me that that's a good film. Unfortunately, the story in this thing is just awful. And I don't mind the whole element of the fantasy world and what we're going on, but like, you've got to have a little bit more going on than the unexamined life is one not worth living or whatever. And as we're going through the Fleck examination through this courtroom, like, it's just stale as shit, you know? And like you said, the Harley Quinn stuff. Oh, I'm going to do it just because the rewatchability is maybe one time, and it's just to confirm or deny what I'm thinking about this. I'm going to go with, God, I'm still sitting on it.
You gotta squeeze it out, my boy.
All right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to say this, and then if I rewatch it, it's either going to confirm it or it could bump it up, but I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
All right. Solid 7.
Yeah.
Lucky number 11. Haven't seen that movie. My rating on Joker, Folie à Deux. I have a feeling I know where this is going. You could probably guess. It is a film that I don't think is good, but I think it does have some things about it that you can see the potential of where it could have gone. You could see the tracks laid out in front of it of, oh, if it went this way, this could have been something I think that would have been really compelling, really interesting and engaging. But instead, to me, this movie spun its wheels too much. And it's just, to me, not consistent enough to have me really get behind it. It's a film that I think the performances are good, but to me, it's just a jumbled mess. And like you said, the story of it is just constantly, it starts in one place and ends in another place. And it might as well have been me not watching this movie at all. So to me, this is a 4 out of 10.
Yep, that's exactly what I had in my head. My question is, there's two things. One, you've seen The Dark Knight, right?
Yeah.
You know, his
Swear to me.
his whole thing in that is he's always got a different story. He's always got a different thing in that. So like he lives in chaos and in true chaos, right? Where there's no points that connect whatsoever. Everything's just random.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah. So pair that.
I tripped on a fire hydrant while a dog was pissing.
He did didn't he had a story like that. Oh, he had a joke. He goes, my mom used to date abusers, you know? And every other week she'd have a guy come home and they'd just, you know, punch the hell out of her, beat the hell out of her, you know, hit her and abuse her. And, you know, after a couple weeks I said, hey mom, why do you still go out with these guys? And she looked at me and she said, beats the hell out of me. Oh man, he had one of that story. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Pretty solid.
Kind of depressing, but hey, I'll give it to it. That's a great pun. But I would say watch Joker 1 and Joker 2 and see if you see a distinction of the split. If you have that in mind with the climax of him accepting the split and then leading into this one, if it changes your mind. Because I think the persona aspect of it is what you can't get behind.
Sure.
And the surreal nature of it. And I don't even know if I'd say it's surreal. It's maybe a real life look at having split personality.
It's psychological.
Yeah.
I don't know about thriller, but it's psychological.
Definitely not a thriller. I don't know who the fuck put a thriller in a description anywhere. Nothing thrilling about this thing.
Side note, one day I think would be very fruitful of us to cover the Nolan Batman trilogy.
Oh yeah.
I think we should do it one day.
Scene logistics.
Scene logistics.
Scene logistics.
Especially for Rises?
Yeah. Dark Knight 2, buddy. That one is a commercialized, hey, do you guys want to see what like good versus evil is? And then the psychological terror that it could have on you? Like, but we're going to make sure that it's dumbed down for 12-year-olds.
Yeah, that shit is, oh, wow, put through a purified, like, just water filter.
Yeah.
Spritzing out of the hose. Nothing left hanging.
Oh.
Speaking of hanging,
Oh,
I'll tell you what was hanging in Fitzcarraldo, the fucking boat. That was hanging off the side
Man.
of the fucking the hill, climbing up it. Yeah, we watched Fitzcarraldo, which was your recommendation.
It was. We have Fitzcarraldo, directed by Werner Herzog. Werner.
What was that name?
Werner Herzog. I don't think like the Z's pronounced like a G.
I think it's Werner Herzog.
That makes sense.
Werner.
Yeah, but they don't say it like when he says it or whatever.
No, I'm very American about the way I'm pronouncing it right now.
Spit the illest lines.
Yeah. Mentally illest.
Okay. Fitzcarraldo, made in 1982 with a rating of PG, directed by Werner Herzog, written by Werner Herzog, starring, as we talked about it before, Klaus Kinski,
who I think worked with him on his last 3 movies before this.
Yeah, like they had some sort of relationship. And then a whole bunch of, I'm not going to go through names besides Miguel Angel Fuentes, who had the biggest head I've ever seen on a human being. For someone that's proportionately sized.
Can I say a name that I just want to say because it was fun to hear?
What?
Hirokiki.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Hirokiki as Hirokiki.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just used his name.
Yeah, that's a good
great.
one. Yeah, let's just keep that
with a
in
name
there.
like Hirokiki, you can't not use Hirokiki in your movie.
Dude, I had the subtitles on and I read that and I was like, what the hell? And then it's like, and then they said, I was like, okay, so that really is like,
yeah, how do
it's a name.
Hirokwe.
Yeah, like I had one, I mean, I got close in my head saying it, but I thought it was just like a scrambled name that they threw on there and I didn't think the guy was going to stay with us, so I just didn't pay attention.
Little did you know.
And then they just kept saying his name. It's the story of Brian Sweeney Fitzgerald, an extremely determined man who intends to build an opera house in the middle of a jungle. Actually, no, I'm going to decline that. It's a very determined man who wants to own an opera house somewhere and needs the funds to get it. And the story is Brian Fitzgerald is
Fitzcarraldo. I think we could probably just call him Fitzcarraldo.
Let's call him Fitzcarraldo.
Yeah.
Is struggling. It opens up with him paddling this boat up to this grand opera house, and he needs to get in. He has tickets, and it's the only time he can see Caruso being performed or Rossini being performed on stage, and there's a little bit of a hassle to get in there, and he gets in there, and he says, you know what, I want to do that with my life. I want to get an opera somewhere in Iquitos, right? Is that how you pronounce it? And we're going to have it here, and it'll be grand, and everyone can hear the music and just the beauty of the opera. And lo and behold, he's just going through all of these financiers to try to figure out who's going to spot him the money or what he can do. And he eventually comes across this rubber baron, essentially, that just tells him that I own all of this land to get rubber. And he spots a map, and he sees that there's this little speck of land in between these two rivers and that no one can go down because of the Pongo.
I think they refer to it as an isthmus.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And they
just want to be geographically correct about that.
Yeah, perfect.
Because I know we're going to be very incorrect with many things in this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
You know, you can't go by there because of the Pongos. The Pongos is this swell of these rapids and waterfall, and you can't take any boat can't go past it. So that's why we can't go south of Iquitos to go get the rubber there. And he figures, I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to buy a, what the hell do you call that thing? A steamboat.
Steamboat or riverboat.
A riverboat. And I am going to get down there to get this rubber to fund and finance my opera house.
Yep.
And it is us following Fitzcarraldo on this journey to fund, I will say, not build, fund the opera house.
Yeah. The whole movie is just him trying to get money so that he can enact his dream.
Yes.
And that's a big theme throughout this movie, is just the idea of like dreams and how big you can dream and like what you have to do to attain said dream.
There's so many like just themes sprinkled throughout this thing where I don't think Werner was intentionally like, hey, we're gonna have this kind of play in here or metaphors in here, but like just sprinkled throughout it, and it just is like, oh, there's so much going on and it's literally nothing.
So the character of Fitzcarraldo is the most interesting part of this movie to me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because he wasn't even the first choice to play Fitzcarraldo.
Mick Jagger and...
So Mick Jagger was supposed to play the character's assistant.
Oh, yes.
Jason, what the fuck was his name?
Rutherhorn,
Robards.
Robards.
So
yes.
Jason Robards was originally cast to play Fitzcarraldo in this movie.
That would have been a bad call.
It's interesting the difference, because I don't know if you've seen like any of the clips from the Jason Robards performance. He's not bad. I don't think it would have been a different type of character.
Not as electric.
No, because the way that he portrays the character is, and you know, to kind of let you guys in, I watched the documentary Burden of Dreams yesterday, so I have a little bit of insight into how this movie was arduously made.
Oh my God.
Not as much as I would have liked, and I can touch on that when I talk about the documentary in a greater sense. But Jason Robards is sort of giving it a more like kind of, I'm like a suave, ignorant, like intellectual. I'm someone who clearly comes from money, but I'm playing this very serious. It's almost kind of like an M. Gustav from Grand Budapest Hotel sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where like he takes himself very seriously, but everything around him is so silly, and he is just silly because of that.
Yes.
And Mick Jagger is more of the kind of like crazy, like out there, colorful character, which, you know, that's quite a surprise. I didn't expect that from Mick Jagger.
Who would have thought that? Was he going to play Hirokiki, or was he going to play the captain of the ship?
He was a different character
altogether
that was just scrapped from the movie when he dropped out.
Okay.
So what happened was Jason Robards completed 40% of this movie.
Yes.
And then he came down with dysentery.
Yep.
Had to fly back to Europe. His doctor said, "Ain't no fucking way you're going back to the jungle, my boy. Like, you have to stay here." So they have to recast the role of Fitzcarraldo. And then at the same time, Mick Jagger is like, "Hey, I got to go tour with the Rolling Stones. Are we gonna get this boat rolling or not?" And so then, because too much time has passed, Mick Jagger has to drop out of the movie. Werner Herzog in the documentary talks about how that is his biggest regret as a filmmaker, is letting Mick Jagger slip through his fingers, because he really wanted to use him in one of his films.
I don't know if I would have played in this one.
I don't think you get enough scenes to get a sense of how he would have been as an actor in this movie.
Okay.
But you do get the sense that like he was kind of the wacky foil to Fitzcarraldo's like kind of debonair sort of demeanor.
Which Klaus pulls in both.
Klaus manages to somehow pull in both, and I really do like what he brings to that character.
Yes.
It almost does this movie a service that you end up with just him and not two other characters at the same time.
I can't imagine two guys playing what he did. Because like Robards, right? Jason Robards.
Yep.
Yeah, he was the grandfather in A League of Their Own.
Okay.
And so he's got like a very old school theatrical booming voice, you know, kind of got that like steely eyed grin. So I got to imagine him in this is just doing that the whole time. And we'll touch on Klaus when we get to our Fitzcarraldo, because his character, I was thinking one thing and then it went another way, and then I absolutely enjoyed him.
I think that, to kind of like put a punctuation on that, I think that would have been a dynamic that we've seen played out in a lot of movies already.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like Klaus Kinski playing this character with such a level of like wacky, colorful endearment, but at the same time trying to be the embodiment of like art and sophistication, is the most fascinating part of this movie.
Oh my God, he's always dressed in white. He's always got that hat on, but he's always dirty. Mm-hmm. His hair goes everywhere.
He wears a white suit that he like trudges through like the jungle and the water. It gets fucking filthy.
I gotta love the opera. Everyone needs to know about the opera.
I'm pretty sure that's the only one he has too, right?
In the
that white suit.
Yeah, that's the only thing he ever has on. And like, the best part of this thing is that he's got it. He's oh my God. Okay, can we just get it out there? What I think of this guy, or what we think of this guy?
Yes.
You nailed it on the head when you said it. Intellectual. Like, I think intellectual buffoon. Like, this guy 100%. Is like, he's playing everything so like fluently, and everything's got to be grandiose, and But so he's married, or he's got a brothel girlfriend that runs a brothel. She's just got prostitutes, right? Like
and she's like rich as fuck. She's got like tons of money.
Yeah, and it's just hinting that like he's just with her, and they have one of the zaniest relationships that I could ever come across.
You get the sense that like she's obviously not with him because of money, because she has plenty of money and she could probably get whoever.
I think she just likes his.
She just likes his vibe.
Yeah,
like, she just likes him as a person and like the wacky, colorful nature that he brings.
Oh my
to her
god,
life.
he just wants to buy a steamboat and he's gonna go trudge it over this mountain and he wants to collect rubber. I can't get enough.
You get the sense that she looks at him like he's silly. Like he's just like this silly thing that she can kind of like entertain and be like, all right, you go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah,
like, that's, whatever. Who cares?
She's the cat and he's the ball on the string that she just keeps throwing back and forth and just does not get bored of it whatsoever.
Yeah,
and
she finds him amusing.
Yo, yeah, 100%. Like very endearing, like endearing, silly. Like he is like passionate.
It's not an abusive relationship by any means.
No, but I mean, like he's passionate about what he's doing. So she obviously loves that he has a vision and is passionate about what he's doing, and will do anything to execute that vision. And there's sometimes, talking about leaders, there's always like that reverence for leaders, is that they see something, they know what they're going to do, and they work their ass off to go get it. So there's a little bit of reverence there for it. So while he is silly, he does have maybe some principles, but he has a vision of what he wants to accomplish, and he's going about doing it the best he can.
He's silly, but only because he is so woefully endearing in everything that he's trying to do, in everything that he's trying to portray himself as.
Oh my god.
To the point where it becomes a detriment, right? Like, people are actively making fun of him to his face. Like, what does the guy say to him at the party? Where, like, you are a conquistador of the useless, or something like that?
I think, someone said that to Werner.
Which is funny because, like, obviously he implemented it in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think they even said it in the documentary.
Yeah, see, that's where I got it from. Oh, it might have been the trivia.
But he's a character who, like, just 100% like feast or famine. He is someone who will like just stick through it no matter what, and try to do it in the most like high class, like upper echelon way possible.
There's the guy that gets bullied and he just keeps getting back up. Eventually he wins people over because obviously his will to do what he set out to do or what he believes in, or just that he's not gonna, he doesn't care about that stuff. He's obviously established his own character or his identity. That's what he takes blow after blow after blow and is just not fazed by it whatsoever. And I think that's why it's very, I mean, whatever he's got going on, whatever he's trying to accomplish, like, you just keep thinking like, this is so dumb, but yet he is so like, we're going to do this, that you can't help but get behind him.
Yeah, he's an idealist to a fault almost.
Yeah,
like it's very much like kind of like a I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the best thing that highlights him, and this is kind of like when I was like, I was not into this thing at the very beginning. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I just know about the premise, right? Mm-hmm. He goes to that rich ass party. He tells his girlfriend or wife or whatever they are, hey, we've got to raise money. And she goes, all right, well, we're going to this event. Let me bring my girls. I'm going to have them have sex with these people and they will give you money. And he goes, we're not doing it that way. I'm going to show up and I'm going to tell them how great the opera is. And I'm going to bring my sonograph.
If they just can listen to this music, they will understand.
And so they go into this area. It's outside. It's almost like a gazebo made out of marble and pillars, right? And everyone's dressed in tuxedos. He shows up with his brothel girlfriend wearing his danky white suit that's got like wrinkles and there's like sweat marks on it. Like, it is so gross looking. And she's like, all right, I'm going to work my magic. And he goes, hold on, I've got the perfect solution to this. And out of this whole area, brings his sonograph and plants it right in the middle. And
cranks that shit.
Tells everyone to shut the fuck up to listen to Caruso so they can donate money. I'm like, what is he doing? What is this guy? And, at that time, like, you're like, oh, he's sophisticated. He's an intellectual. He has means of money. Like he knows what he's doing. At that point, I realized he's a buffoon. He's got no idea what's going on, cannot read the room, but he's set out to fucking accomplish this thing. And he pulls out this. Dude, the sonograph, it's got a huge, it's a record player with a huge ass horn on it. So not only is it, I mean, like
it
today's
sticks
time.
out.
Yeah, it sticks out. And
I think this is like 1890s or something.
I think it's like 1910s, 1920, like somewhere in there, because they talked about the expedition in 1896. It's like they keep reference the two fathers with shrunken heads.
Yeah.
You know, so there's obviously a little distance from there.
So that's a good kind of segue into this film is kind of based on a real person with the name Fitzcarraldo. I think the legend of it is his name was Fitzgerald. The locals couldn't pronounce that as a name, so they just called him Fitzcarraldo because that was more within their ability to pronounce that name.
Yeah.
And then he kind of went on a similar expedition to become a rubber baron, except his boat was significantly smaller than what's portrayed in the movie. And they split it up into, I think they said 15 different parts.
Yeah.
So that he could get across the isthmus onto the other side of the river. This movie does it a different way in that he gets a big ass riverboat, probably like
360 ton.
Yeah. So, not small.
Whatever that means to you people hearing it, just saying 360 tons.
Picture like the ferry you would take across like Lake Michigan, or like something like I don't know, like the neighbors are shining a industrial light. What's going on up there? Hello, sir.
Oh yeah. What are they doing?
I don't know, but they're spotlighting our podcast.
Yeah.
Big boat. Big boat. And not only that, but they're going to try to haul it over this land in one piece. They're not going to take it apart.
No.
It's like this idea of like, oh, we're just going to get it the fuck across.
Dude, he goes, if I could create the perfect pulley system, I could move 10,000 tons over 10 months, and I could crank and I could only move it 10 inches. We need to have people help us.
Yeah, this movie, it's very kind of like Sisyphus-like in the way that it portrays the struggle of like obviously getting the boat across the river, but also just like trying to sustain and obtain his dream of having this opera house.
Yes.
Because he's got so many steps that he's got to do. He's got to get a boat. He's got to get enough people to work for him. He's got to get this fucking boat across the land, obviously. He's got to go from one place to he's got to get like support and money for it. He's got to go and get the fucking rubber from the rubber trees so that he can get enough money to purchase hopefully an opera house for the jungle of all places. Like, it's one of those struggles that is like so needlessly complicated and difficult to obtain that I don't know, the core of the movie is something that I think is just inherently interesting. Where I kind of start to bump up against this movie is the runtime, is the sort of like later hour and a half of this film where it is just them getting the boat over the land. And I will agree that it is impressive, and it is something to be said that they actually did it in real life, and that it sort of parallels the idea of using the tribes as labor to do it, both within the film itself and how they filmed it. But to me, it is a very kind of like simple portrayal of this arduous struggle to the point where I started to kind of lose interest. It's one of those things where like I get what they're doing, and they're going to do it, and it's really impressive that they're doing it this way, right? But I don't know. To me, it was like I started to find myself falling asleep at that point. It didn't help that I was very tired. I was coming off a shift at work. Yeah. But at the same time, it's one of those things where like, all right, I get where this is going. Let's get this rolling. Quite literally, let's get this rolling. And I get the point of it. You're supposed to kind of like feel the struggle along with them. It's arduous. It's tedious. It's something that is like damn near impossible to do. And when they do it, it's impressive. But the combination of like no music and like the very simple filmmaking choices and like the kind of like quiet nature of it left me kind of bored. And I'm wondering if like maybe you felt some similar feelings, or if you were a little bit more invested than I was.
No, this thing. I mean, it's a 2 hour 40-minute movie.
It's quite literally a slog.
Yeah, I mean, it's
they're slogging the boat through.
Listen,
and the movie's a slog.
I'm telling you, I wasn't. It's not like I was engaged the whole time. It's from 1982, and then you got to think at the time, just for audiences to see that was probably enthralling. But like, we've got Avengers out in space destroying planets. Like obviously it's a different time from when the movie came out. I mean, we're looking at 43 years.
Yeah.
So, no, I definitely wasn't engaged the whole time. It was more so for me. So I'm going to tell you right now, this is, it's funny how like perspective and expectations change, right? I thought he was putting that fucker just in the jungle and he was making that boat the opera house. So when that thing went back in the water,
really?
I was like, what's going on? And then I realized, he does the whole map thing. And he explains it. I think like once they're on top of it, might have been like when they like right before they landed or got there. He goes, "Here's how the Amazon flows. Here's where we're at. Here's where Iquitos is at. That's a ukulele, whatever it is, land over there. You can't get past here because of the Pongos. We're the only people that can set up shop right now. If we can get this boat back upstream." Right, collect the rubber, come back this way, and then that's when like my whole perspective changed on the film, and then I immediately I was like in it. I was like, oh, it's not necessarily the boat. It's okay. He's got to go get the rubber now.
Yeah,
we got to bring
getting to the river. Yeah,
we got to bring that, and then I'm like, they got to bring that thing back over this fucking hill. So like, where are we going now? And so my whole thing. That's why I got like really into it at that point, because in my head the whole story flipped. So. If I'm not, like you're supposed to have this dream, the not a fever dream, but this surreal, and it's not surreal, it's just this over obtainable object or problem that's sitting right in front of you, and witnessing that get solved. And I wasn't necessarily into that the whole time.
You're like feeling the weight of the task that they have to accomplish.
I mean, it's and I kept Jasmine watched this whole thing and she was into it. She was kind of like, what? I'm like, do you think they get it over this thing? Like, I feel like they're going to. Like, they kind of have to, but at the same token, like, there are a couple obstacles here, and I don't know if these tribes people are just going to leave them or like how's it going to happen. So. But my perspective changed on what the story was, and that's when I got really back into it. I was out of it, and we'll say probably like from when just bits and pieces, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like when he's like talking to the poker table, and I need money, and when the tribes people are coming, or when people are leaving, or he kicks them out, and so there was just
pockets. Like different intervals. Yeah. Mine was more of just like a dense chunk of the film. Whereas, like, my interest was pretty into it the first, like, I don't know, like, hour 45.
Yeah.
And then it gets into them actually getting on land with the boat and then having to, like, pull it over. Honestly, like, even though that is, like, the center of the film and what the film is about, to me is where it lost me the most.
Well, there's just not a lot. I mean, you really got to be bought in with the unbelievable stakes at hand.
Yeah.
And if you walked into that and you see them and you're like, well, they're going to get it over that mountain, like, it's not going to be that great when they do.
So that's a good point for me to, I think, kind of touch on some of the documentary stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a documentary made called Burden of Dreams. I watched it yesterday. And it's a 97-minute documentary. So thankfully it's, a quick watch compared to this 2.5-hour long behemoth of a film. And it very much focuses in on just the production troubles wholesale. Like, it doesn't really touch on his relationship of Werner Herzog, his relationship with Klaus Kinski, or like that whole thing. That is a separate documentary called My Best Friend, which I think I would be interested to cover that with you eventually.
Yeah.
But it's very much from the standpoint of like, kind of like Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
We're just going to show like the production troubles and like all the arduous shit that they had to go through.
The raw
in order
footage
to get
of
this,
production.
To get this movie made. And like, we're going to show you like behind the scenes and like a lot of the tribes people kind of like working with them and like their contentious relationships going on with them.
I heard there was a piece of trivia, not to cut you off, but there was
No, you're good. Go for it.
Piece of trivia that the tribe injured or killed someone, and that there like a direct quote from Werner was, "We aren't going to retaliate, all right, because I don't want to have like conflict going throughout this whole production."
I think I can say what it was.
Yes.
And it's not that someone killed someone, it's that a member relayed a message from a chief to Werner Herzog because they didn't like Klaus Kinski at all.
Yes.
They thought that his behavior was pretty abhorrent.
That's a great word.
And so, thank you. They offered Werner Herzog, "Hey, we can like kill this guy if you want us."
No, that's a different incident. Hold on.
What are you thinking? Because I don't remember.
You keep going on it, because I'll tell you in a second. Because I was reading it in the trivia, and I couldn't believe that he had to make an executive decision about not to retaliate as a avoid conflict.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. It is weird because some of the facts that I learned after I watched the documentary even weren't even included in the documentary. Like, they don't touch on a whole lot of like the people that died making this movie. Because I guess there was like a plane crash in which people got injured. There was a guy who ended up getting bit by a venomous snake and he had to cut his leg off with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
That whole that's not included in the documentary at all.
Oh, really?
No, it's
some of the juiciest stuff. I mean, not to say that we want to see that, but
literally anyway,
here's the quote. Okay.
Yes.
So the film was shot during one of the region's driest summers on record. Okay. Indigenous Hamoaka launched a hit and run raid on the film camp. One man survived an arrow through his throat. His wife was hit in the stomach, necessitating 8 hours of emergency surgery on a kitchen table. So mind you, the director, says, "I assisted by illuminating her abdominal cavity with a torchlight, and with my other hand sprayed repellent to get the clouds of mosquitoes that swarmed around the blood away." Herzog decided against a revenge attack, believing it would be bad for relations.
So, okay, I will say they did include that in the documentary.
Oh, really?
The only reason I thought you were talking about a different thing is because the guy who got shot through the neck didn't die.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So I was like, I don't know if a guy got killed or not, but I remember.
No, yeah. So I thought you were talking about something else completely. That said the first like 15 minutes of the documentary.
He's holding a torchlight while they're doing emergency surgery on her abdomen and is like spraying mosquito repellent and then screaming at people, "We don't negotiate with terrorists, but we will not attack."
There's a scene. There's a scene in the documentary where Werner Herzog is like going over the arrows that were shot at those people.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Yeah, I might bring one of these home for my son. I think he would find it very interesting. This is the arrow that was shot through the guy's throat." I'm doing a horrible Werner Herzog impersonation.
But like he's in Jack Reacher. He plays like some psycho in it, like a villain. Mm-hmm. And someone was like, he was so aptly cast as that, and he describes like this horrific incident about what this guy has to do to live, right? And like he's holding, it's like hey, show me what your capability, willingness to survive. And he presents this situation, and someone I was reading about was like, yeah, the reason why is because he's had all these horrific experiences, and I'm like, come on, he's a director.
Yeah,
how bad could it be? And then you're reading about that, like.
What's crazy is that so I've seen Hearts of Darkness, the Apocalypse Now documentary, which is also something worth covering.
Yes,
but in that documentary, it's very clear that there's a progression of Francis Ford Coppola kind of losing it.
Yeah.
And in this one, you never really get that sense from Werner Herzog.
He's Fitzcarraldo, man.
He has this cadence about him. It's very because he is so kind of self-assured and dry, and he's very matter of fact in the way that he speaks.
It's kind of how Fitzcarraldo was.
Well, German people are very punctual that way.
Yeah.
So he comes across very in control, even though the situation is very much not in control. So he has this not really confidence, but just this weird comfortability and confidence that he has.
Yeah, we're gonna make it out alive.
Yeah, this sort of like weird self-assuredness
It's
that he never really lets slip into. Oh, I'm feeling desperate.
Yeah. Arrogance, maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I think there's a bit of arrogance.
I was about to say,
like
like
you watch the documentary, it's like, okay, this guy, he's kind of
a little bit.
a very kind of obtuse, like has his very like white European perspective on this like South American environment.
We're good. No one's gonna kill us. As he's pulling the arrow out of this guy's neck.
Well, not even just that. Just like the idea of like how he and the film crew treat the tribesmen that help him with the production of the film.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're using a lot of extras and like people from the indigenous regions that are included in this movie in like the scenes of labor. And because of how it's filmed, they're actually doing labor for the film and for the scenes of the film.
Yeah, they made $2.
There's a lot of justification from like his side of like, oh, we're paying them more in an hour than they would make in a week.
Yeah.
Something to those effects.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure that their land is certified for their possession. We're going to make it an official thing. So we're actually kind of like helping them out in a way.
Sure, just dump the boat there.
Where like you get like a good sense of like, okay, he kind of has an understanding of what's going on and like what his relationship to these people are, but he still can't escape that very Eurocentric mindset.
Right.
And it's kind of fascinating. And I think the documentary is very good. It's one of those movies that to me, the making of this film is more interesting than the film itself.
Oh, that's harsh. It is fascinating though, because this is a movie production that, because watching it, I was thinking of Sorcerer a little bit with being on location as opposed to being on set and going
being on
through.
Location, you're like transporting some like very difficult thing.
Well, I'm not talking about the actual story and what happens. I'm just saying with like how the film's made. Like you've got all the elements going against you. You're working in foreign lands. You've got to deal with multiple governments.
Don't make a movie in the jungle.
Yeah,
for
like,
God's sake, do not make a movie in the jungle.
You know, and
happened with fucking Apocalypse Now. Happened with Predator. Happened with Sorcerer.
Yeah.
Happens with this fucking movie. Happens with the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Whoa, you had I guess 5 good movies all in there. Yeah, no, it's I guess so. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit more high on this thing than you.
I don't hate this movie at all. I think it's a perfectly fine film. It's just one of those things where like there's a little bit here and there that I can kind of nitpick at.
Pockets that I'm with you on that.
My biggest bumps against this as a movie are just like the runtime and the pacing.
Yes.
And another big thing, and this is a technical thing, this movie clearly was just like dubbed the whole way through.
Oh my god!
Like a very clear like audio issue. That's something that I wish the documentary would have gotten more into. Is like, okay, how did this film turn out? What were the sort of like obstacles that it had to get through? I bet you he
couldn't, with all the background noise going on, to have like a boom mic hanging over everyone to capture stuff.
Well, what's crazy is that there's scenes from the Jason Robar version where you can clearly see like, oh yeah, he's actually saying the words that are coming out of his mouth, and like you can hear them through the audio.
Yeah.
And in every single scene in this movie, not just when they're in the jungle, but like he's on the church bell tower, like he's just in a room, like everything is dubbed from every single actor, and it is wildly distracting.
It was the first 15 minutes while I'm watching this, I was like, what's going on
after
with the
a certain
audio?
point I got past it, but only because at a certain point characters just stopped talking. Like
did you were you watching it? Was there a weird like cut?
Yes,
that
there
happened
was. When they're on the river?
Yeah, going to check out the Pongos.
I thought something fucked up on my like fucking Chromecast, so I was like, oh god, let me like rewind this. And then it did it the same way in the same exact scene, because it was like this loud noise and then it just like juts.
Cackles, yeah.
It's like, oh shit, like is my TV fucking up? Like, dude, what's going on here?
We had this, we're watching it on Amazon
Scared
Prime.
the fuck out of me.
And I went back to VHS days. I was like, oh my god, did I fuck up the tape? Like I immediately sat up, and Jasmine's like, "What was that?"
PTSD of like scratched discs and like.
I was like, "Oh," and then I'm going, "No, this is streaming." I'm like, "Well, how the hell did this happen?" You know? And then she's like, "Was that?" And I go, "It's got to be part of the movie." Like it's not. It's streaming. You know.
For a second, it happened again so precisely the same that I thought to myself, is this movie going to be like weirdly surreal and like kind of
Yeah,
wacky? Like,
that's what. Well, in my head the whole time I'm like, he's building an opera house in the jungle. So like,
right?
who knows
Is he
what's
gonna get
gonna
like
happen?
jungle fever? Are we gonna be in the perspective of some guy who's going mad?
Yeah.
Nope, just the stream fucked up. I don't know
Oh
what to
my
tell
God.
you.
But
It's crazy. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
no, it's got to be a thing.
Yeah, that's weird. Streaming is fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to remember what else from the documentary. There's another interesting point where they talk about the relations with the tribes people and how there's like an issue with the intermingling of like the crew with the extras, and they had to hire prostitutes to come out for the crew so that way the crew wouldn't intermingle themselves with the women of the tribes.
Oh, is that why they did it?
Yep.
Someone I read that.
At least that's what I got from the documentary. I don't know if there was like a different
the trivia
thing.
that I read was just that one of the production assistants or someone helping finance this film said you're gonna want to have prostitutes because these people they're gonna get bored living out in the jungle for 10 months or however long they're out there.
And Werner Herzog is talking about like, oh, if you shoot this movie in America or in the UK, prostitution wouldn't even be a thought to consider. But here, it's almost like a necessity. You need it. And he's just so serious the whole time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how does this guy? He's just like, hey, it's part of life. Like these guys have to have sex, and we'll provide it.
He's like, but the pussy is a necessity.
Just like,
What do you mean?
dude, it's just so nonchalant. It's just like, of course, bring in the prostitutes. Yes, go. Like,
one of the more notable scenes, and this is something that I can like kind of touch on to wrap the documentary perspective up, is the last scene in which they have to have the boat go down the rapids. They have to film that whole thing. I mean, they pretty much everything you see in the movie is something they had to do in real life. So when the boat is like, it's close.
There's a couple like you can tell it's a toy boat sitting in the rapids.
they had extra. They made 3 different boats for this movie. One of them was like basically just this like skeleton of a boat that they could use as like placeholder, right, for the real thing. So they had this thing fucking going down the river, spinning out of control, and like. Fucking 3 of the 6 people that were on it got injured because it got tossed around so much. They're like basically getting ragdolled all over the place. You can see like cameramen in the behind the scenes just getting like tossed on deck. Like, I'm surprised nobody fucking fell off the thing, which is crazy. Because like one camera guy gets his like hand cut, and like Klaus and fucking Werner are trying to like heal him. At the same, I
read that someone had to get
crazy.
Strapped into the ship so that they didn't get flung through a window.
It's crazy shit like that where it's like, oh yeah, this is what the movie. It's just like all this stuff that you see in the movie is what they had to do, and like a good reflection of like making art and following your dream, mirroring the theme of this movie, almost 1-to-1. Like, I don't know, it's impressive. It's an impressive feat.
It's very unique in that sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very unique in that, like, there won't, not today, we'll never see, like, that's a record that won't be broken.
No, I think his sentiment was like, there's not a movie that was made before like ours, and there will never be another movie after ours like ours. And It's kind of funny because, like, at the end of the documentary, the guy asks him, the director of whose name I forget. Maybe I'll throw in like a little audio clip of his name.
Les Blank.
But he's asking Werner Herzog like, what do you think about this? Like, just a general broad statement question, like, what do you think about this at the end? And it's kind of like it's a moment of humility for Werner Herzog because the whole time he's so like kind of like assured and like kind of like keeping his cool the whole time. And this is the one moment where he kind of lets his guard down and goes like, nobody should be making movies. Nobody should be doing what I'm doing. This is crazy. And he goes into like the jungle and it being like an inherently evil place that he respects and loves. Yeah. Which is a good way to wrap up the documentary. And a good perspective on it overall.
One of my favorite quotes from this thing that I'm hoping one day that I'll be able to just turn it into like a phrase, colloquial expression, if you will. No, not the Pongos. Dude, when he screams that out and then you just see that boat drifting into the rapids. Oh, now that's another like 10 minutes that could have been trimmed.
So that's something that I just kind of had a misunderstanding of with the film.
Yeah.
Is that once they get the boat over into the other river and the natives cut it and the boat kind of goes like careening into the rapids.
Yeah.
I first thought that they knew that they were doing that. I thought that was the plan, but no, the plan was they're going to go over, see if they can do it, and then like bring it back.
Yeah,
but the natives thought that, oh, we're going to sacrifice this ship to the gods. So then adios. And then the ship just like goes haywire.
Yeah. Which I didn't, there's that whole scene to get to the Pongos. One is this like hey, we're just not going to tell anyone. It's just going to happen kind of deal. They had to go, they're going upstream again, if I remember correctly. Right?
Yeah.
So how the fuck do you miss your exit? Like like he just all of a sudden he like wakes up in his drunken stupor and finds the captain and he's like sleeping and it's, hey, what are you guys doing? Like you're just gonna go that you guys got hammered and then to say that the tribe wished or sacrificed it, like that guy steering the ship and just set bail, like I didn't get that part.
Yeah, it's one of those endings where I was like, oh, I got it. I guess I kind of had this a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
When I first watched it, and then what do we think about the end where he kind of he puts like an optimistic spin on it, where like he's gone through all this shit.
Oh, dude.
And despite all the struggles that he faced in the movie, he kind of puts on this little impromptu sort of like symphony.
So wholesome.
Yeah.
So wholesome. I was laughing and I'm like, this is how this should end for him. Like this is, he got what he wanted, right? And it's this very wholesome, endearing. I mean, like he to some extent captured his dream, and he's just out there, he's smiling, he's waving at everyone as this opera's playing on this fucking banked up ship. The thing's leaning.
Yeah, I was surprised the thing didn't fucking sink.
Dude, he's like, we got 2 more weeks. Here's all this cash. Give me a box of cigars. Give me a red velvet chair and give me the best opera that's performing Rossini, and let's get them all over here. And then he just gets up there and he's like, I did it, bitches. As he's waving to everyone in Iquitos. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You just got to feel like he got it, man. He did it.
No matter how big of a loser, he's always a winner.
Oh, God.
Is the takeaway.
Yeah, he's still the buffoon. But, I mean, and maybe he was looking for his, treasure. That's why I really liked it. He might have been looking for his treasure full of gold, right? Like the sunken chest, And instead he finds this little lockbox. And there's like one little gold nugget in there. And he goes, you know what? I am a gold digger. And he takes it and he smiles and he like just treats it like it's a trophy, and he just walks away and he goes, hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was 10 million pieces of gold or just a little nugget worth of gold. I did it. I said I was going to find it and I found it, and that you got to applaud someone that has that ability to just say, hey, life throws at you a lot of shit. It doesn't matter. I said I was going to do it and I did do it. It doesn't matter how big or small it was. I said it was going to happen and it did.
We can wrap up soon. One last thing I wanted to throw in there before we forget. I really like the scene where he goes to the part of the jungle where like this guy and his family are waiting for him. Oh, God. By like this set of train tracks that he's building or something.
That it was a failed project and the guy is working for free and I don't know if he told, like, it leads up that he kind of mentioned something to people working on it. That guy didn't get the message.
No, and like you get a clear sense of like, oh yeah, the Fitzcarraldo, some dude who he just goes around and does this with people. He just like starts these ideas.
He's a buffoon. Yeah, he's trying to do whatever he can.
Yeah, I like the history that's portrayed between those two.
Yeah,
where it's like not obviously stated, but it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of like a funny little thing. It's part of his character.
I love that's when there was. So that part was when I was like, oh, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah,
that was the first time I realized he was an idiot. Was like, oh, I remember him talking about this railroad, because he was trying to talk to people at the beginning of the film about it, about helping out with it, and that once he gets this established, he can be the he'll be the logistics for all these companies that need to go up or down through the isthmus or wherever it may be in the land, and that he was going to be the guy transporting all this stuff. And then you just find, he's trying to build a railroad in the fucking jungle. Like, that's just stupid, right?
Yeah.
And then this poor guy's there, and he's like, I've been here for the last 6 months. No pay, no nothing. But it was your dream, and you said you were opening it up, and guess what? We have the port, the hub's right here, and we're going to take this thing off. He's like, yeah, no, we're going to need that iron.
Yeah. Can we get the tracks?
The guy's like, not under the locomotive, and he felt so bad. He's like, no, not under the loc. Everywhere else you could take, but not under the loc.
Yeah. No, guys, don't dismantle that part of this guy's hard work. Dismantle this part of the guy's hard work.
Let's let him share something. That, and then the part when I realized, like, he will do anything to get this thing up, because idiot willing to do whatever. Like, you got to watch it. It's like, is it going to be a car crash or not? Is when he goes, that's the natives. They've been following us. And he goes, well, what's up with the natives? He goes, they believe in the boat that's going to take them to the promised land, and the man in white that's going to deliver the message and free them from whatever. And he goes, yes, okay. We're going to use that against them. It's just like, that's how I get my free labor. I am the holy man. Come work with me and I will bring you there,
Yeah.
There's so much just little nuggets in here of just fun stuff.
Fun movie. We can get to ratings.
Yeah.
And then after that, we got some questions from last episode we can answer.
Perfect.
I guess I'll go first on my rating.
Yep.
So you might react a little bit to my number that I'm going to give. I'm not trying to give it this number to be harsh. It is one that I think is representative of my overall enjoyment of the film.
Yep.
The sort of like technical aspects that I kind of bump up against. It is a positive rating that I attribute to the character of Fitzcarraldo and just the overall idea of this sort of like Sisyphus-like struggle. But there's just a lot about this movie that, to me, the biggest thing is rewatchability. I don't find myself rushing out to watch this one again, especially when it made me a little bit sleepy. So this is a high 6 out of 10 for me. So I don't know. I'm good with that. Thinking about maybe bumping it up, I don't know, but like that's where I've landed on.
Hey, listen, it's made in 1982. Like, it's one of the films. You gave it a 6. Listen, I was in and out of this thing. I had my phone up. I was doing a draft at one point. Like, I was kind of like checking in, checking out on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just the audio dub. I mean, it is, it's not like it's sleek or anything. It's just it feels very raw watching it. So yeah, you don't have to defend it. I mean, my score. It's literally, I think the character of Fitzcarraldo, just us talking about him, almost could bump this up for me. It's going to be higher than what you have it as, but rewatchability is like one of those things that I fall back on with, like, that's a star or two for me. Like, if you want a movie to be good, you got to be able to put it back on again. But if it can nail at other things, or at least you talk about what was the thing in Nope. What was that word? Spectacle. This is a spectacle, and of the time, it was probably a lot more of a spectacle than what it was now, but it was fascinating for me to watch. And with the character of Fitzcarraldo, going through some of his quotes and thinking about just how he handled things, I love. But this is an 8 out of 10 for me.
Okay. And
this is like a, Fitzcarraldo, if this thing was like 25 minutes shorter, might be a 9 out of 10. But then there's other aspects of it too, where it's kind of got like a very it's linear. I don't want to say linear story, but the story isn't like it's building up to go anywhere. You're getting to one point, and that's just the spectacle of this thing going over the mountain, and you really got to hit it. So I thought that was fun, but yeah, 8 out of 10.
It's pretty linear. Boat goes in a straight line.
Yeah, upriver. But this thing, if it was like 25 minutes shorter, I think this is like an easy 9 for me.
I think I agree with you on that sentiment. Maybe not a 9, but the rating would definitely be higher.
You're looking at a 7, high 7, possibly 8.
Yeah, something like that. So last episode, we had a series of questions. We couldn't answer them because it was a little too late. But we can answer them now.
Yeah.
And I still have access to those questions. And
Nice.
what better time to answer these, because most of them are Halloween or scary movie related.
Ooh.
So, yeah, 'tis the season. I think this episode's going to come out near the end of October, so it'll be close to Halloween.
Always, I never time it up.
I know, right? It's one of those things where I think about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, we could line this up. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we're on like a 2-week buffer.
Yes.
So our first question comes from Gideon. He texted this to me, and he asks, have you ever been frightened by a movie? Have you ever been frightened by a movie?
Yeah.
I mean, I get frightened from just like jump scares a lot of the time, but that's mostly due to like the sound design and the sudden image on screen.
Yeah.
To feel like actual anxiety from fear, for me, is something that I think is an indication of a really well-made horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Hereditary, something
Yes.
like, oh God, why am I blanking on the name? Skinamarink. Where it's got like a really good sense of like that slow looming horror and Barbarian kind of does that too.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh yeah, this is a good sort of portrayal of like this looming threat that you can see coming, but like the anxiety of it,
tension,
is the fear that's being instilled.
Yes.
So I mean, those are just like off the dome what I think of.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that's normally for me. I mean, I like that. It's the ability to pull myself out of it though, of the situation or the movie itself. So like I love movies. I shouldn't say love. I maybe not love, but I know a good film when you have the tension and the like you said, the anxiety of the situation going on and the possibilities. But like once it happens, I kind of get back. So that never scares me. It's more so of like being able to go home after watching a film and being like, all right, what's looming around this corner?
Yep.
Or kind of like, all right, what do we have going on? So I'm kind of drawing some blanks on what's made me. You want to know the scariest movie I ever saw? Fucking Primer. Made me question reality. So
Existential fear.
yes, existential fear. If I'm being 100% honest, that movie scared me the most on what is my existence in this world.
Right.
And that one. If you want to have a good, like, what's it all mean, Basil, go watch that film and then turn off the TV and sit there and think for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, Hereditary is a great one, but not necessarily like once it was like, all right, can I go to sleep at night? Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, I watched The Exorcism when I was like 10 or 11, and I think I was just too young to have that kind of be like a very scary thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because I liked your answer of like existential fear, because that's a fear that I don't think a lot of people think about when in relation to movies.
No, that's a real like what's going on in my head fear.
Yeah. There's movies that I've seen, and I can't think of any specific examples right now, but there's movies I've seen where the idea of me being as small as I am in the universe makes me a little bit fearful just from like that existential standpoint. I could imagine how some people would react that way to like Tree of Life or something like that, where it's a movie where it kind of reminds you of like how small we are in the grand scheme of things.
I had a bad incident that happened, years back, and I remember I was at home and I was really just down on myself and what occurred, and put on Room 231, or I think it's Room 231. It's the Stanley Kubrick. It's about the making of The Shining.
Yeah, the documentary.
Yeah, and that scared the fuck out of me. Like, I think I went and threw up.
Ooh, The Shining's that's a good answer too.
Well, not The Shining, Room 231.
I know. I'm just throwing out The Shining for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that is a good one.
Oh yeah, yes.
No, but that one, I remember I told my brother about that, and he was dying laughing, and I'm just sitting there, and I was like, dude, and you're just thinking, how fucking smart is this guy? Like, he came up with all these things and all these theories about how he made this film, and that he could put all of this on a camera and have the camera work exactly the way he wanted it to, and I'm fucking stupid, man. Like, so I have not been able to go back to watch that film. But yeah, Yeah, that's another existential. Maybe not existential, but that was that one hit home and made me very. I had to go rake leaves. Like I got so nervous to be by myself. I had to go outside and like create a manual task.
Yeah,
so I could take
distract yourself.
Yeah.
One more answer I'll provide from a different point of view. Zodiac. Just thinking about the fact that happened. That was something that took place, and that there are people in the world that are like that.
Yeah, that's a good one, especially when he's. Yeah, there's a scene in particular that makes your skin crawl.
The park scene, is that the one you're thinking of?
No, it's when it's at the later part of the film, and he's going to talk to an individual.
I think yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
yep.
And all of a sudden you're like, what's going on? Where's this going? Like he's
exactly.
Starting to,
it's like the last 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, he's pinning things together, and all of a sudden, like you're doing it with him.
Yeah,
that sheer terror creeps over both, like the character and you at the same time. It's beautiful.
We're being kind of vague, but if you've seen Zodiac, you'll know what we're talking about.
Oh,
and
1,000%.
That scene is driven by a lot of assumptions being made by the character and by us as a viewer.
At the same, but it's all at the same time, right? Because it's not like you're pinning or piecing things together.
Yeah, no, it's
like
just
he does it for you, and as he's doing it,
it's more of just like a what is going to happen.
Yeah, and then you think about the environment he's in and the situation and everything that's going on. It's not like he's at a coffee shop, you know.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar predicament.
Yes.
Our next question comes from Levi, Gideon's brother, past and future guest Levi. What's your favorite 80s Halloween movie?
80s Halloween film.
Now, is it Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween, like Mike Myers, or is it Michael Myers? Yeah, baby. Or is it just any scary movie that came out in the 80s?
Well, mine's Silver Bullet, but do I have to have a different answer?
Oh, I don't think you do. I mean, I haven't seen any of the Halloween films.
Oh, wait. Are you saying like the Halloween franchise? Or is it any...
Well, the way the question's asked, I think he probably just means scary 80s movies.
Okay.
Like Halloween scary movies.
Yes.
But...
you haven't seen any 80s Halloween movies?
I mean...
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, here's a big one of the many big blind spots for me is horror franchises. So like Friday the 13th, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, a lot of those big tentpole horror franchise movies I have not seen.
Will you accept 1979 or does it have to be 1980?
I mean,
says 1980, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But what was going to be your answer? Maybe.
There's another really good one, Salem's Lot.
Okay.
It's on HBO Max. Don't watch the new one. Trust me on that.
Okay.
Salem's Lot's fantastic. I rewatched that last week while I was working from home. Just threw it on, and I don't know. I don't think it'd go down smoothly now, but it's like my dad. So we watched. We got the miniseries. It's a miniseries, right? But it's like 3 hours long. But they had to have it on 2 VHSs, so we rented it from Blockbuster. And he remembered watching it as a kid, so he's gonna show us. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "We're watching." He goes, "And this isn't nearly as scary as the book." So like when you like Gideon's question on like sheer terror. I read that book, and there's a early on in the book, right, when it's Richard Stryker and or Mr. Stryker and Mr. Barlow. Mr. Barlow makes his way to Maine, and something happens at night, and I was like, "Oh, that's not like that bad." I got done reading it. I set it down. I literally could not sleep. Like I had to turn. I was in the basement. I read this book. Had to turn on the light and then sleep with the light on, which I can't do. And that's like the most.
So you just didn't sleep.
I mean, I fell asleep eventually, but
right, your body just gave up.
It was like one of those things where I was like, "Oh, this isn't that scary," and then all of a sudden, like you hear, looking around like, okay.
Well, like once
What could
one of the
that be?
pin drops in your thoughts kind of lets go, it just cavalcades into a whole series of thoughts
Well, and then
that
it's
just keeps
at
you
night,
up.
so you hear everything going
You're
on.
like hyper aware of like the house creaking,
Yeah.
and like someone maybe steps in the kitchen, and you're like, oh, what is that?
You know, like when you can hear like there's the vein in your head just kind of pulsating
Every
like
day.
Yeah, I was at that point.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like my mom. I'm just kidding, Mom. I love you. Yeah, sorry, Levi. I don't really have an answer for this one because I am a pathetic loser. Anyway, our next question comes from Scott. He has 2 questions.
Okay.
First one is top 3 best costumes ever wore or saw. Warsaw? The location where they had the Nazi trials?
That's where we were kind of going.
Yeah. No, top 3 best costumes. I mean, off the top of my head, best costumes for me, my Walter White one was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think I showed you a picture of that,
Yeah,
right?
that's spot on.
Yeah, that's in terms of like accuracy and how much I enjoyed dressing up as the character. Walter White would be my number 1. Number 2, Waluigi. I dressed up as Waluigi before.
Nice.
I wish at the time I had the mustache that I have now.
Yeah.
Instead, I was just like rocking a push broom at the time, but I didn't want to shave it for a fake mustache. So Waluigi was more of like a, kind of like part-time stay-at-home dad type of energy.
Yeah.
Where he's just got the push broom stash going on. And then my number 3, I'm having a hard time thinking of one more. Oh, you know what? Number 3, this is a good one. Last year, I was Owen Wilson from the Darjeeling Limited.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
I was all beat up and I had the bandage, and Megan applied a lot of the makeup, which looked really good.
Did you put the plaster over your nose?
It was like it's like a bandage or something,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I had like a suit and everything, and I had a cane. So I looked a lot like how he dressed up in that movie.
Yeah.
So I was basically just like beat up like Owen Wilson from Darjeeling Limited. So that's probably my top 3.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got number 1, me and my brother dressing up as Garth and Wayne from Wayne's World.
Nice.
I believe that's what we did. Either that or he went as Wayne and I went as something else. But that was a good one. Number 2... Yeah, number 2 is when I dressed up as Larry Bird from Indiana State. I had the Larry Bird Indiana State jersey.
Nice.
Yeah, so I had some baby blue shorts. So I just pulled them up to my belly button. Got some tube socks and then threw on the jersey. And then it was, the hick from French Lick, so I already kind of looked like it. And then number 3 would probably be, and I haven't done like a whole lot of like Halloween dressing or gone out. But when I dressed up as my dad as a coach.
Okay.
Yeah, once again, hiked up shorts, tube socks, tucked in. The nice thing about old coaches back in like the 80s or the 90s is that they would have like warm attire on, but everything had to be tucked in. So no matter how ridiculous it looked, you had to hike it up, your shorts up, and tuck everything in. So
Yeah.
I can't quite remember. I don't know if I had a sweatshirt on or like a pullover, but it looked ridiculous. And I had a fake mustache, so it was great.
I was going to ask if you had the fake mustache.
Yeah.
I tried to convince Megan for us to this year potentially be like old school retro athletes.
Yeah.
So like the sweatbands and like the short shorts and like the tank top and everything.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that.
Okay.
We're going to be old school burglars, we decided.
Nice.
With like the striped shirts and the crowbar and like the mask and everything.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. And after this episode comes out, the Halloween party that we're going to will have already happened, so I'm not spoiling anything.
Nice.
His other question was, along the same lines, couples matching costumes, for or against? I'm for.
I like me and Jasmine. I believe it was 2 years ago. Dressed up as Lana and it wasn't Cyril from Archer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was Lana, and then I went as
You stopped over for a tie.
Oh yeah,
You
that's
borrowed a tie from me when you were
right. Yeah,
that character.
yeah. I had the glasses. I had everything.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, why aren't you going as Archer? I was like, one, I don't look like him, and two, I was like, to be that boisterous the whole night, because it's like I can't do that.
So I'll tell you this right now. I'm very familiar with that picture of you and Jasmine like standing next to each other in costume, because it's one of the very few photos I have of you that I can use on social media for when I promote the podcast or make like a funny Photoshop, because there's not a whole lot of pictures of your face like clear and in good quality online for me to use, so I have to really like get creative with it sometimes.
That's a easy one to pull. That or the Big Trouble in Little China.
That one I use a lot.
Yeah.
I use the one of you. I haven't used it recently, but the one of you where you have, I think, Preston on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And you've got like a big smile on your face.
Yes.
There's one where I just literally screenshot the video of you and Jasmine doing the gender reveal, and like you're kind of turned to the side.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, well, I need a side profile of Mac, but there's none online. So I'm just gonna look at this video and screenshot it when he turns this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, you make it a challenge, and it is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're both in agreement of like we support.
It's fun. You got to make it fun, or you got to make it punny, or you got to do so. You can't, if you do something that's not fun or not funny, then no.
Yeah, it's like, well, what are you even doing then?
Yeah.
J Hall, good friend of the pod,
hell yeah,
has this question. Please give us your Halloween candy Mount Rushmore.
Ooh.
So the 4 choices of Halloween candies, like the top 4. I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay, because I don't want to say creative with this thing, but you got to think, you're 12 years old. You go out. You got to.
So I will ask this
right
off the get-go. Are we thinking about this from the perspective of us now or us when we were kids? Because that's a vast difference.
Well, when's the last time you went trick-or-treating?
Well, I'm just saying in terms of like my taste for candy. Because there's a lot of candy I like now that I didn't really like back then.
Well, that's a you thing, so you got to figure that out. I guess
that's my cross to bear.
Yeah, because I'm going back to when I was trick-or-treating, and you would go fucking house to house, and it was a smorgasbord of Laffy Taffy, fucking gumdrops. You get Hershey Kisses in there. Like, it was a nightmare trying to sort out the good from the bad. But
okay, I'll ask you this then. Quick tangent. Pro or anti Tootsie Roll?
Back then, anti. Now, pro.
I like Tootsie Rolls. I've always liked Tootsie Rolls.
Wow.
I'm a freak, though. So
those things were, unless you want, like, straight-on chocolate.
Drew likes to make fun of me because he says it's like eating little pieces of dog shit. And
they don't taste like that, but
I like the taste. The taste is good.
Yeah, it's chocolate. What are you talking about? It's like
I literally tell him it's just chocolate. He's like, no, it's dog shit. I'm like, you're dog shit.
Get him. No,
anyway.
I back then, no. The Hershey Kisses and Tootsie Rolls. See you later. All right. Listen, there's one, and this might be a cop out. Anything king size. The people that were like, hey, we're giving you a full candy, whether it's Snickers,
that
Baby
was my
Ruth,
family. My
Reese's
parents
Pieces,
handed out full candy bars.
Like, yeah, that's number one is king size, whatever, right? 100 grand, whatever it would be. 2, Kit Kats. I always think that people scrimp on the Kit Kats, and for some reason, there's always like a plethora of the caramel like things, like the little chocolate caramel like castle things that you get.
Yeah.
The Hershey Kisses that go in there, like you buy a bag of candy, and for some reason, whoever gives it away, they're like, it's cheaper to buy these 2 or 3 items, and we'll just kind of throw in a couple Kit Kats. Kit Kats was always a freaking treat whenever you get it, and sometimes you just go there and they just get a handful. Next, Reese's Pieces. Those things, because people will just give you one, but even like 1 cup of Reese's Pieces is better than like 5 Hershey Kisses, right? Like I will take that any day of the week over Tootsie Roll, Hershey Kisses.
You said cup. Do you mean Reese's Pieces or Reese's Peanut Butter Cup?
The whatever it is, the peanut butter cup.
They're very different things.
Well, I'm not talking Reese's Pieces where you get like the M&M things.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
that's a very important distinction.
The peanut butter, I guess. It's been a while since
we're taking this seriously.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been trick-or-treating. I just remember going through that thing, and like I think by the time like my last year was 13 maybe, and being like, fuck, like this is now a game plan, not necessarily being young and stupid and just going out and getting free candy. Like it was like, I don't want to deal with like the nerds or having to go through and like all these suckers that people just give you. It's kind of diabolical. I mean, I know it's like free candy, but at the same time, like who the fuck hands out like just the suckers? You know, like the little suckers that here you go.
It's usually older people,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And plus they're cheap. Like the little fucking... They're not even like the ones with the Tootsie Rolls in them, but like just like the plain, like solid ones that are like so small you find them at like banks or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Like they give you a handful of those things like that will make you
could probably
happy.
get like a big pack for like 50 cents or some shit.
Yeah.
At least back when we were kids.
Last one I will say, and it may sound kind of weird, Baby Ruth. And the Baby Ruth, the only reason why it's making the list is because after you've already hit all the good stuff with whether it's Snickers, 100 Grands, or it's not Baby Ruth. What's the one that's like chocolate on the outside and then chocolate taffy inside it? Is that Baby Ruth?
That's Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. It's got the silver with the red. And
Yep.
Three Musketeers, because you get through, you eat all the stuff that you know the name of, and then you're digging through that pile of crap, and all that's left is all the crap that you don't want. There's 2 pounds of it. There's always the Three Musketeers left, and you have a chocolate craving, and the only thing that can satisfy it, because you're not going to eat Hershey Kisses or Tootsie Rolls. Sorry, Kyle. Three Musketeers.
I'm not offended.
And you get those things, and they're always bite size. And then it was always like a crap ton of them. And then you're just engorging yourself on Three Musketeers at the very end of the candy run before you throw it all away.
Can I throw this out there too?
Yes.
I feel like anytime I got gum, it was always hard.
Yeah.
Always hard.
Yeah, it's the bubble gum. Like whatever that pink bubble gum is.
Yeah, like the one in like the blue and yellow wrapping.
Yeah, it's my brother gave Preston a crap ton for his birthday.
Yeah, you break your fucking teeth on them, let me tell you.
They're not awful. It's actually gum that lasts.
They're good when they're like soft, but the shit was hard all the time.
Yeah, you got to get a little saliva on them to break them down.
You gotta get some spit shine on those bad boys. Yeah. So I'm going to think of it from the perspective of when I was like, let's say middle school, right?
Yeah.
Like probably around the last sort of era I went trick-or-treating. I don't know when I stopped in 8th grade. So one, I'm going to kind of take your Kit Kat. Like, can we choose the same things?
Yeah, of course we can, dude.
Okay, Kit Kat's going up there. I don't know how you're going to feel about this when I say this. I loved Nerds.
Monster.
Fucking Nerds.
Gross.
Were and still are delicious to me. I love that shit.
Is it like hard rock candy?
It's literally just like cubes of sugar coated in candy. I love sour candy though. That's the thing. I love sour candy, which leads me into my number 3, sweet tarts. I love sweet tarts. Yeah, dude, I like fruity candy. I'm a fruity candy guy. I like Mike and Ike's. I like sweet tarts.
Sorry, J-Hole. Kyle missed the assignment.
Maybe 7th grade Kyle did, for sure.
Well, you said 8th grade. Hold on now.
I'm lowering it every time. And then, yeah, I don't know, the fucking potato chips that the old man down the street would give me. No, I'm just kidding.
Those are all... Yeah, maybe not, but those are always fun.
They took up like half the bag.
Yeah.
Because like you get like a big bag of chips and air just taking up space in your fucking candy bag. Yeah, and then I guess I would probably say, I don't know, like at the same time I was a picky kid, but also I just was thankful for whatever candy I got. And any ones that I didn't want, I'd be like, all right, my parents can have these ones. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Reese's Cups, but...
It's on you, man.
Yeah.
It's whatever you were looking forward to eating.
Yeah. Wasn't a huge fan of, like, Twizzlers or gum or, like, just, like, some of the suckers that you would get. Just, like, Wasn't, like, huge into gumdrops. They get stuck in my teeth all the time. That wasn't always fun.
Dude, the taffy and the Nerds and the freaking sweet tarts and then your, like, bare bone chocolate... Pass. For me, at least.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll gobble that shit up.
But
I don't care.
The gumdrops, I'm also in the same boat. Pass.
Our last question comes from Alexander Keast 6777. This was on YouTube.
Nice.
What horror film from your childhood was the most traumatic for you? What specifically stuck with you that made it so scary back then?
Scary, traumatic. I think all the stuff I talk about, we've already talked about.
Yeah, this is one of those where like we've kind of answered it before, and even in this like same episode.
Well, we gotta give the man an answer. You want to go first?
To give the man. Well, here's the thing. I was too much of a pussy. I didn't watch a whole lot of horror movies.
Oh my god! You have to have something that scared you. And it can be from Fred Flintstone when he ran into his Triceratops.
Do commercials for CSI when I was a kid count? Because those always kind of spooked me out.
That's your digging into the well.
Well, that and like, I don't know. Okay, previews for horror movies that I knew I was never going to see, but because my parents were watching like ABC or something for the news, they would play like a commercial for like The Grudge or something, or like whatever like jump scare cheap ass horror movie was gonna hit the box office and make like $100 million that weekend. Like just shit like that where the like jump scares in the commercials would frighten me to the point where I'd like think about it and it'd keep me up at night, and I'd have to think about happy thoughts like the Mythbusters to keep me from going, scared the whole time.
Yeah.
So
that's previews.
That's my pathetic answer.
Previews for horror movies is what.
Yes.
I can't believe that's the only thing that's scary. Like I don't believe that.
I'm telling you, dude. I was not a big movie kid.
Well, I know you weren't a big movie kid, but like, there's got to be something.
That's the closest thing I can think of.
All right.
I'm sorry I don't have a better answer. I wish I did. Believe me.
Oh, writer. I don't want to see writer. I want to see actor. So mine is. There it is. This has got to be it. The brothel. Moonlight is a bordel. What's a bordello?
A bordello is a brothel.
Okay, so mine is the bordello of blood.
Okay, that is not something I know about at all.
So I will say this: like I didn't watch it. So like if we're talking about like a film I saw all the way through that scared me, it was probably Silver Bullet when the werewolf's under the greenhouse and then you see the eyes. I watched that when I was 6 or 7.
Yeah,
that one gets me. But the scene specifically that scared me the most is we were at my parents, like their best friend at the time, right? Like we're staying, we do sleepovers there, and we were supposed to be going to bed, and I get up. I had to go to the bathroom. So they had this movie on called The Bordello of Blood on. It's with Dennis Miller, like Tales of the Crypt type thing. So it's supposed to be kind of like a comedy. Dennis
Miller's a name that I haven't heard in a long time.
yeah. Boy, that name hasn't been spoken in years. So he stars in this thing. Now, I'm not watching the movie or anything. I just had to go to the bathroom. So I watch out. So this is all completely out of context, right? And on the screen, there is like Dennis Miller with his friend, right? And they're in this bordello. So there's all these women in lingerie around, right? And like they're kind of like swooning over the characters, and you can kind of tell there's like, and I'm just kind of like taking my time watching this going on, and there is like some mist or something in there where you can kind of like the siren song, where they're just being hypnotized, and you can tell Dennis Miller's got like something like this isn't right going on.
Yeah.
And his buddy is with this gal, and she's kind of like all over him, rubbing his hair and his body, and he's kind of like they're setting up something. And all it shows is that she goes to whispering something in his ear, and instead of whispering in his ear, she sticks her tongue out the other side of his ear and sucks it back in, and the guy goes down. And I saw that and was like, "Up!" and just beelined it for the bathroom and came back. Now, I'm telling you, I've never seen this movie. This is the only scene I've ever seen from it, and I was 6 or 7 years old seeing it because I just saw it when it came out. It was in 1996.
How did you figure out the title after the fact?
So I knew,
was that just something someone told you?
No. I knew Dennis Miller was in it, and I knew it was a brothel of vampires. Like, that's all. I just went on to IMDb. You want to see how I did it?
Yeah.
I typed in Joe Dirt because I couldn't remember Dennis Miller's name, but I knew that it was Dennis Miller. I clicked on Dennis Miller, and then I was like, all right, it's this one. It's like a Tales of the Crypt. It's supposed to be like a comedy horror thing.
Yeah.
So I just scrolled through his filmography, and I know it was early 90s, and I saw it. The Bordello of Blood's the first thing I saw. I was like, that's Tales of the Crypt. So that's why I asked what a bordello was, if it's a brothel, because I knew it was a vampire brothel. Like, I shit you not, dude. I've seen this thing for all of 30 seconds in my life, and I still remember that scene vividly.
It sounds like there's some confronting a fear that we need to do on this podcast eventually.
Bordello of Blood.
Why not? Revisit some childhood memories.
I don't know if it'd be traumatic now because when you look back on stuff, you're like, oh, completely out of context. Out of context, that chick stuck her fucking tongue through that guy's head.
Well, you don't think Dennis Miller would be scary to watch in a
Right?
movie?
And I don't know. He might have played this thing like seriously, and it might not be a horror comedy. It could just be an attempt at a horror movie. But like when you think back, like it was like a really fake tongue that just like it. Like those like the bazoo things that you go and they fly out and come back in.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like. But
wacky Bordello of Blood.
Bordello of Blood. Yeah.
That might be something we could put a pin in for a later time.
Yeah, I have to remember it. I got to see if this other, because I still have this movie in mind that I say it and I get really nervous about it because then he said high expectations, but saw a really fantastic film that I'm hoping that we could talk about.
Well, speaking of which,
okay,
it is my turn to recommend. Now, you said you might have a movie we could check out with whatever
you recommend.
I recommend.
Yes.
What were you thinking? Since it's the end of the episode.
Well,
or do you want me to list my?
Yeah. Why don't we hear
first?
I will let you know if it pairs or not.
Okay. So I'll let you know. I'm game for anything.
Okay.
After I list this movie.
Okay.
But this is a 1978 animated film.
Oh.
It is 92 minutes.
Transformers.
So yeah. It's 92 minutes, so it's not a huge time commitment whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's on Max, so it's easy to stream, and even if you don't have Max, you can rent it pretty easily, I think. And I want to read you the tagline.
Okay.
Because it is one of the most fascinating taglines I have ever come across.
Anime.
It's not anime.
It's animation.
It's animation. And the tagline goes really hard.
Okay.
And the subject matter it's an interesting kind of thing to touch on. Okay. So this is the tagline. I want you to try to guess what this movie is.
Okay.
All the world will be your enemy, prince with 1,000 enemies, and when they catch you, they will kill you. But first, they must catch you. That's the tagline for
Disney
this
film.
It's not a Disney film.
Okay. It's a PG.
I don't think it's PG. Let me look it up on IMDb. Or I think if I type it into Google will just tell me maybe.
Ferngully?
No. Let me see. So it's technically rated PG, but it's one of those films that I think like
from the 80s.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's not R, but it's not PG.
Yeah, 1978. So
yeah, Jaws falls into PG.
It's a little fat, and I think because it's an animated film, it kind of like people look at it and think like, oh yeah, I could have my kid watch this.
They aren't gonna take it seriously.
I think it's one of those films that's like known for being kind of bleak.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if you've heard of this movie.
Probably not. So why don't you?
It's called Watership Down.
Nope.
It is an animated film about rabbits trying to find a new home.
I bet you I've seen. You got the.
So this is the poster.
No, I've not seen.
This is a striking poster, is it not? Think about this with the tagline.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those films that's like kind of a cult classic.
Okay.
And despite its short runtime, I think it could yield some interesting discussion.
Possibly.
So
we'll find out. Have you done research on this thing?
Not a ton, mostly for the fact of I want to be surprised by this film.
Okay.
So Watership Down.
Okay.
It's my recommendation.
So you're saying, they kind of do, they do pair a little bit.
That's exciting.
A little bit. And I guess we'll know after we see it. Well, if you have or haven't seen this thing. We'll find out.
I'll let you know.
All right. Is a movie directed by Nai Hong Jin.
Okay.
Nai Hong Jin.
Can't say I'm familiar with that name.
Do you recognize Kwok Do Won?
No.
Okay.
Can't say I do.
We'll see if you've seen this or not, because I don't know. It sounded like you haven't. The Wailing.
I have seen this movie. I could rewatch it though. It's been years since I've seen it.
Really?
Yes.
Now, is it years of like completely new perspective of seeing this thing, or is it
Like,
years of?
I've only seen this once, and I saw it in like 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's been some time. I would watch it again.
You would.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have like an idea about where you rate it at? This thing, I think, it's a fun movie to talk about. That
I
don't
know
think...
for sure how I feel about it.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
There's like not much ambiguity. It's one of those films where like now that you've thrown it out there, I'm kind of excited to go back to it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because I just watched this. I watched it a week ago, and I threw it on. It was like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I was like, hey, Jasmine, like, let's watch a scary movie. She's like, okay, and then passes out 5 minutes into it.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I'm like invested. And I'm watching this thing. I was like, oh, I bet you Kyle's probably seen it, but I don't know if he has. And this thing is like, there's so much going on, and there's just like no one has any idea. I've never heard anyone talk about this thing.
Yep.
We got to throw it out there.
Yeah, we'll throw it out there.
Let's do it.
I'm excited to cover it.
Watership Down in the Wailing.
Yep. So cool. If you guys don't want to be spoiled for Watership Down, 1978 animated film, and The Wailing, which I think was
2016.
Be sure to check those films out before episode 83. Thank you guys a lot for checking this episode out of the Neon Crew Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We also have a website, www.neoncrewpodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give us some 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. Check out our Etsy page. We got some cool merch for you to buy. Shout out to Gideon for doing our music. Shout out to Lauren for doing our artwork. Shout out to Sam for the night call if he had one this episode. If not, we'll catch up on the next boat down the river. Check out our social media. I'll be posting on there usually to announce what movies we're going to cover next, and also either some updates on some things or just whatever general memes or vibes I want to throw out there. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube community. Links in the description. McLean, what do we say at the end of this spooky Halloween episode where we didn't really talk about scary movies that much?
And we'll be on the next one. WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.
I don't know how to do a good Werner accent.
I was wondering what you were going for.
Yeah, it was attempt. Should have just laughed into there again.
I appreciate it.